The Washington Times reported today that unidentified White House aides in the Carter, Reagan, and Bush administrations now are being investigated for using the services of a call boy ring. The paper reports that 2 of the male prostitutes were given a late-night tour of the White House last year. The White House press secretary, Marlin Fitzwater, said he knew nothing of this investigation. NBC's Lisa Myers reports her sources in the U.S. Attorney's Office say the investigation is not focusing on prostitution, but on fraud involving the use of credit cards to pay for the call boy service.
An international pedophile ring has been fully operational for decades. Plummeting down the rabbit hole, you will eventually discover the Franklin cover-up, the Jimmy Savile scandal, the Hampstead cover-up, the Elm Guest House scandal, Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Island, and many others that were eventually buried by a colluding media, and the fact that the general public loses interest because the reality of high-profile pedophilic predators is an alien world and completely repulsive to the average person. But as recently as a week ago, Norwegian police arrested 20 men and were investigating 31 suspects involved in a pedophile network. Deputy Police Chief Gunnar Floystad told reporters that many of the suspects were highly educated and included lawyers and politicians. Prosecutors said the suspects had met on the dark web. The material discovered on the dark web involved children as young as toddlers and included acts of bestiality. According to the local NO, police stressed that their operation uncovered not just one pedophilia network, but several. We have the clear perception that like-minded individuals met with each other in the so-called dark net, where they could talk with one another and cultivate their interest in children in peace, Rikers said. There are several highly educated individuals with high IT skills. They've used encryption and anonymity to hide their tracks, head police prosecutor Jane Ringsett Heltney said at the Sunday press conference. She also said that all of the perpetrators involved are men, and one of the involved men had a pregnant girlfriend and discussed plans with another man to sexually abuse the child once it was born, police said. Also, last week, USA Today reported Portland, Oregon police arrested Terrence Patrick Bean, who had been charged with 2 felony counts of having sex with a minor last year. Bean raised more than $500,000 for Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Bean has been one of the state's biggest Democratic donors and an influential figure in gay rights circles in the state, reports OregonLive.com. He helped found 2 major national political groups, the Human Rights Campaign and the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund, and has been a major contributor for several Democratic presidential candidates, including Barack Obama. A search of the Federal Election Commission's campaign finance database turns up thousands in donations every cycle by Bean to the Democratic Party's most powerful leaders, including Hillary Clinton, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, Senator Dick Durbin, and Representative Barney Frank, among others. As the Pizzagate scandal unfolds, regardless of the mainstream media downplaying of it.
Fake news, by the way, is not an abstract problem. The owner of a D.C. pizza restaurant called Comet Ping Pong, where I've taken my kids, began receiving death threats after Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit carried viciously phony rumors that the pizza joint was the base for a child abuse ring using underground tunnels led by Hillary Clinton and her campaign chief, John Podesta.
It is all a lie. Comet Ping Pong owner James Alefantis says the restaurant does not even have a basement.
Just disgusting.
398 children remain missing in the greater Washington, D.C. area. WikiLeaks revealed that Tony Podesta had mentioned he was still in the torture room. Let's hope the walls are finally closing in on this cancer that has fed on thousands upon thousands of children worldwide for decades. John Bound for Infowars.com.
We're only 50 days out from the inauguration of Donald Trump. And as I warned everyone weeks ago, the Democrats and the globalists are not giving up. These people have overthrown countless nations. These corporate combines openly fund the most radical forms of Islam to butcher and murder millions of people during the Arab Spring across the Middle East and across Africa. They're not playing games. They're not giving up easy. We have to realize they are savage military enemies of this country and of free people everywhere. We have to harden ourselves against them and realize these are our sworn absolute enemies that want to make us poor and break us and abort our children and poison our food and our water with their GMOs and fluoride. You understand? They hate you and your family. And the minute you start realizing that is the minute you turn the corner. They are globalists. What, you think they just stop at wars? Look at all their occult garbage. Look at all the pedophilia worldwide at the tops of these organizations. We're dealing with devils. And they've got all their useful idiots out there who watch mainstream TV and believe it's their right to ignore the people's vote. It's okay to vote and then have what you do stolen by the political party. Just like we saw the arrogance of George Will in the Washington Post saying we're going to ignore the majority vote for Donald Trump in the primaries because we don't listen to a mere plurality of the people or a majority. We listen to the sovereigns of the party, the sovereigns. These people believe they're royalty, gods over us. And they run the gamut from mercenaries to arrogant pieces of tyrannical filth like George Will to the true evil that's above them that feeds on their fellow humans in a predatory fashion. So now, I have a clip where Paul Watson breaks down the fact that they've got electors lined up, ready to vote against Trump. And I can confirm this report. I was told over a week ago that they had 15 of the electors ready to jump ship and perhaps more. Now, they get 40-something folks, bye-bye Donald Trump. Now, you're going to say, well, he's elected. They'll never get away with it. It'll cause a civil war. That's what they want to do. They've got their people hopped up and whacked out of their brains, all because Donald Trump wants to try to cut taxes and has brought Carrier air conditioning back and has brought Ford back and is about to bring Apple back. They want to be screwed. They want to be hurt. They want to be losers. They have mass Stockholm syndrome, learned helplessness. They worship the tyranny. They enjoy it. They have no lives. They have no future, but they associate their personal power, their entire identity with MSNBC, with CNN. Now, they are a minority of people, dumbed down fools, manipulated from birth. They can be black, they can be white, they can be Hispanic, they can be Asian. What they are is fad-driven idiots who believe that it's a cool idea to get on the bandwagon to try to block Donald Trump at any level. And they're going to do it at every front because, listen, the globalists almost had the United States destroyed. They almost have the UK destroyed. They almost have the European nations destroyed. They're continuing their program of impoverishing populations by design. The EU's own documents have been released decades ago. This is their plan. This is their program. They almost had us where they wanted us. The spider had almost gotten us completely tied up in its web so it could finally then have its meal. But America is now in its death battle, is now in a death struggle, and so is the UK and others, against this scourge that weakens our society, that weakens our cultures, that dumbs us down, that nerve gasses us with the psychic propaganda that spews out of the television set. And I'm telling you, you have to realize these are not just dupes at the high level doing this. They all, at the highest levels, consciously understand what they're doing and believe through sheer force of demonic will that it's their right to rule over us. Now, Paul Watson has another very powerful piece. We'll air after this, and we'll go back to David Knight, dealing with Jill Stein as a complete idiot. And that's a viral term he uses to spread the video. But look, Jill Stein knows exactly what she's doing consciously. And Hillary keeps playing possum, and her lawyer comes out and says, don't be part of the recount. Meanwhile, she's got her ground troops in Michigan and other states launching the recount. So they're trying to disrupt things. They're trying to create some numbers in states that he won to look like he may have stolen something, to add legitimacy to these electors, which they've already organized when they make their announcement that, oh, because it looks like the vote is in question, we're now swinging against Trump and for Hillary. But they were already organizing day one to pull the electors from the Electoral College before they went and started the recounts that haven't even begun in most of these states. So it's on, folks. Understand this. This is serious. This is real. and they mean business to bare minimum destabilize the country further. And George Soros has got his proxy armies of Black Lives Matter, the jihadis, and others like the communists activated and rolling out and ready. And the mainstream media, just like they backed the Arab Spring and Anderson Cooper said how great it was, will praise them as they burn cities to the ground. Look, we got Trump elected so far, but he's not in office yet. And there's many battles yet to come. But his sin is that he's not out to get America. His sin is that he wants Americanism, not globalism. And that's why this is such an incredible and amazing time to be alive. But it's time to get focused. It's time to get angry. And it's time to spread the word of the information war like you never have. Not just spreading our videos, not just spreading our articles, but also on the ground with posters and micro FM and calling into talk shows and calling into C-SPAN and marching and going out and engaging these anti-Trump people and really lovingly but very focused getting in their face and saying, break your conditioning, fool. Because most of them have only gone off the peer pressure of mainstream media. And most of them you can take out of the trance very, very quickly. But we've got to get engaged even more now. The battle for the Republic and the planet has just begun. And remember, none of this is our opinions. We've proven it completely. We're on target. We're the patriots that are defending America. We're the ones that have been proven right. We're the people that should have everyone's respect. That means all of you that have spread the word for decades. You are amazing what you've done, bucking the globalists when it was early on, when everybody was against you, going against the peer pressure, having the will, the historical understanding, and the guts to do what's right. I salute every one of you. Now here they are, back-to-back Paul Watson's reports.
In a sensational new development, TV host David Pakman says he was told by a high-level source that 15 electors in states that Trump won will refuse to vote for Donald Trump.
This is something that, if true, is absolutely huge. And what my source told me is that there is a coalition of at least 15 electors, electoral voters, electors, Trump electors, who have decided that they are not going to cast their electoral votes for Donald Trump on December 19th.
Pakman went on to say that the electors are lobbying other members of the Electoral College to not vote for Trump. The goal is to prevent Trump from getting the 270 electoral votes he requires to become president. If Trump loses 37 electoral votes, it will put him under the 270 benchmark and throw America into a constitutional crisis. One elector in Texas has already resigned, saying he will refuse to cast his electoral vote for Trump because he doesn't consider the president-elect biblically qualified to work in the White House. Jill Stein's recount could also throw the result in doubt in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Electors are also being bombarded with death threats and pressure to change their votes from Hillary supporters. This would be totally unprecedented, and it's a long shot. But it illustrates the left's desperation to do anything to sabotage Trump. Many of these electors will be breaking the law if they vote against the will of the people in their states. But in most cases, the punishment is a fine of just $1,000, and many of them will happily pay that to try and keep Trump out of office. As with the recount, it's virtually impossible to prevent Trump from taking the presidency. But this dirty tricks campaign will help create the narrative that Trump's presidency is illegitimate, a narrative already being framed by the constant assertion that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, derailing Trump's effort to implement significant policy changes within his first 100 days. Could 15 or more electors really be planning to defy the democratic will of the American people, over 62 million of whom voted for Donald Trump? Jill Stein is a complete idiot. Her recount campaign has nothing to do with electoral integrity. It's a vicious assault on the very bedrock of democracy itself.
This is not being done to benefit one candidate at the expense of the other.
Really? Is that why all the recounts are taking place only in states that Trump won? Why not a single recount in a blue state that Hillary narrowly won? Jill, Trump won Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes, while Clinton won New Hampshire by less than 3,000 votes. She won Minnesota by less than 44,000 votes and Nevada by around 26,000 votes. Smaller margins than Trump won Pennsylvania in every case. Why no recount in any of those states? Why a recount in Michigan, which doesn't even use electronic voting machines? None of their systems are even connected to the internet. Both Stein and Hillary Clinton's campaign admit they have no proof whatsoever of any fraud. But Jill's only doing this because she really cares about democracy. In fact, Jill cares so much about democracy that she spent the last few days fawning over someone who spent his entire life sending democracy activists to gulags.
Fidel Castro was a symbol of the struggle for justice in the shadow of empire. Presente.
So you're calling for electoral integrity while praising a dictator who ruled for half a century without a proper election.
Americans deserve fair, transparent elections.
You're saying Americans deserve fair, transparent elections while genuflecting over someone who presided over a one-party state for 50 years. Give me a break. Hey, Jill, Cuba's last election seemed a little bit fishy. How about a recount there? And while you're at it, why don't you audit California and find out how many illegal aliens voted for Hillary? That's not going to happen, is it, Jill? Because this has nothing to do with electoral integrity. It's about you remaining relevant, having failed to get barely 1% of the vote. It's about you fooling people into giving you a ton of money for something disguised as a recount, which when you read the fine print actually says the surplus money is going straight into the Green Party's back pocket. It's about you trying to regain lefty street cred by doing Hillary's dirty work for her. It's about the left trying to delegitimize Trump's presidency before it even begins by stripping him of his electoral college margin of victory, forcing Congress to directly select Trump. So all the butthurt Hillary won the popular vote morons can go out and riot again, full of contrived righteous indignation. Unless they engage in brazen fraud, Trump is still going to be president. But given that the recounts probably won't even be done in time, they're going to use this to disrupt the electoral college vote before December 19th. Oh, and isn't it just rich that the raised corpse of Hillary, only people who hate democracy challenge election results, Clinton, is now hovering in the background of all this. Maybe November Hillary should have listened to October Hillary.
To say you won't respect the results of the election, that is a direct threat to our democracy. Look, some people are sore losers and, you know, we just got to keep going.
The same hag who lectured us about being sore losers refused to even concede to Trump on election night until Obama basically forced her to. She also reneged on a deal with Trump to concede within 15 minutes of the Associated Press announcing the winner. Now George Soros, globalist despot who specializes in overthrowing democratically elected governments, has been connected to the recount campaign. Well, imagine my shock. Listen, don't think that just because Trump won the presidency, they're actually going to let him become president without a fight. The political elite don't play by the rules. The rioting, hateful, butthurt, intolerant left are their attack dogs. They're perfectly willing to trash democracy when the result doesn't go their way. Look at Brexit. Nearly 6 months later, they're still doing everything to sabotage it. Between now and January, we have a massive battle on our hands. Listen up, Jill. We know you have complete contempt for democracy. We know you're bought and paid for by Team Hillary. We know you're a lying piece of Why not just admit the real reasons for all this and stop pretending it's about electoral integrity while you simultaneously praise dictators who once imprisoned and killed those who actually fought for electoral integrity? Take your George Soros money, go back to being a political failure, and stop being used as a pawn to overturn the democratic will of the American people.
All right, it's December 1st. I'm David Knight here live in the studio. We're going to be having Gerald Celente join us in the next hour. He's going to be looking at, I'm sure, a lot of economic issues, post-election issues. Looking forward to seeing what Gerald has to say about the cabinet picks that we've seen, especially the Treasury Secretary that we had yesterday, Steve Mnuchin. There's been a lot of talk about Steve Mnuchin, and we're going to get to that first, but I want to follow up with what Paul Watson was just talking about, the 15 electors saying they're going to refuse to vote for Trump. You know, most of this elector stuff and the talk that we've seen has been coming from Democrats, isn't it interesting, in Colorado and other places like that. But I'm sure there's a strong never Trump strain in there. I think it may have to do with Trump picking Reince Priebus. Perhaps he picked Priebus to shut that down. Remember, the same thing was happening in the lead up to the RNC. They were saying, well, we had an election and you should have electors going to represent the particular candidate, but they're not. They're going to vote their own conscience and defy what the electors want. That was what the Never Trump people were pushing at the time. And actually, I think that was probably a more dangerous time, because if you won a state, you didn't get to pick those electors. And so we saw Ted Cruz going in and getting people who supported him rather than people who supported Trump if Trump won the state. We saw that happening over and over again. It's a different deal when it comes to the Electoral College. In the Electoral College, you have a slate of electors that are picked by that party. So if you can keep that party in line, if you can have somebody like Reince Priebus keep that party in line so that you've got people who are supporting the Republican rather than Hillary Clinton, then I think we're going to be in good shape. And I think as we look at all of this talk about Jill Stein, we got to remember that this lady not only doesn't understand economics, she's a socialist. She's praising Castro, as you just saw in the report from Paul Joseph Watson. She doesn't appreciate democracy. She doesn't understand how the process works, just like these people who immediately took to the streets. They looked at a lot of these protesters who were arrested. Most of them were not even registered to vote. Okay, that's the way they participate in the elections, is after the fact to burn stuff down. But she doesn't even understand how the appeal process works. She missed the deadline in Pennsylvania by a full week. That means that those 20 votes would still be there for Donald Trump. And if that all holds, then even if she's able to stop these other two states from participating in the Electoral College, then he would still have 280 votes. So that's something that bears watching. I think that explains a lot of the things that are going on there. And of course, it is a move to really come after the Electoral College. We need to understand that as well. All these people who are pushing for this, it's kind of interesting. I was going to talk about this yesterday, but we didn't have time to talk about it. They've actually got a group that names themselves after Hamilton. The irony of it was that Hamilton was an elitist who didn't trust the people. He supported the Electoral College, and yet these people are saying, well, we want Hamilton electors. We want to have a direct democracy. And it's like, that's not what Hamilton supported. You don't understand history. You don't know what the guidelines are. You don't understand any of this stuff. But as I've pointed out before, the Electoral College is a good thing because it is a firewall against the corruption and the concentration of power that we see in large states. And we have an article on Infowars.com from Alan West pointing out this very fact. He said, these numbers should shut up liberals about the Electoral College once and for all. But he makes a point in it. He says, our founders, in their infinite wisdom, created the Electoral College to ensure the states were fairly represented. Why should one or two densely populated areas speak for the whole of the nation? And again, we have to understand they viewed, and they rightfully so, the federal government was a creation of the states. So it's not just we, the people, that created the federal government, but the states created the federal government as well. And they were so concerned about the concentration and consolidation of power in the federal government that we have now seen become a reality in our lifetimes, that to try to avoid that, they separated power not only within the federal government, but also between the people and the states. They gave the state governments the power to directly appoint senators and other things, which we have now repealed. And that's why we have the kind of concentration that we have in the states. But still, it remains as a firewall to having New York and Chicago and L.A., New York City, those three cities essentially pick the presidency. We can see what's happening even in North Carolina, where there really is a legitimate recount going on there. At the very last minute, a very corrupt Democrat center, Durham in North Carolina, extended their election times for an hour and a half, and then at midnight they came in with 100,000 votes that switched the election around for the governor. And yet we see the Democrat lawyers who are pushing for this recount saying we don't want a recount in North Carolina because at this point, with Durham's votes thrown in, heavily skewed towards Democrats, the Democrat candidate is winning in North Carolina. When we're looking at this recount, I heard on the radio yesterday somebody had someone from, I think it was Wisconsin, might have been Michigan, but I think it was with Wisconsin, fighting with Jill Stein. They said, this is highly unusual for a candidate who got less than 1% to demand a recount. She has absolutely no chance of winning. And of course, it's not about that. We have a report from Kit Daniels talking about how Hillary is holding up with this, and also kind of touches on the motivations behind this. Not only the self-serving motivations of Jill Stein, but also the motivations of the progressives, of Barack Obama initially calling on Hillary Clinton and saying concede, but now encouraging her to participate in the process because he thinks that progressives are stunned and helpless and they've got to rise out of their stupor. And so he thinks this is going to be a morale builder. Stay with us. We'll talk about that and other issues when we come back. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host in studio, and Gerald Celente is going to be joining us in the next hour. He's going to talk about post-election issues. He's going to talk about the economy, the global effects of the Trump presidency, trade. He's also going to talk about some of his top 10, not top 10, but his top trends for 2017. And, of course, Gerald Celente's publication is Trends Journal. So we want to see what Gerald sees ahead for 2017. We've seen a lot of optimism after the election. I want to talk about the pushback on free speech. I want to talk about the reaction to Hillary Clinton is having, and I want to talk about two different aspects of the reaction to free speech. Let me finish with what I was talking about just before we went to the break, which is this report from Kit Daniels, a report that from an insider saying that drunk Hillary is demanding a recount to, quote, lift her spirits. Maybe she's going from first lady to bag lady. You know, wallowing in her self-pity, alcohol, the gutter, but with mountains of cash to comfort her. They say, this is a Clinton insider, said she's weepy. She looks 10 years older. She's very whiny. She's been drinking wine pretty heavily, much more than usual. She mopes around all day, swimming in a sea of recriminations and complaining that her campaign managers were incompetent. Bill and Chelsea didn't work hard enough. FBI Director Comey was in league with Trump. It's not her fault. See, it's all these other people. It's this vast right-wing and now a vast left-wing conspiracy against her as well. Everybody has conspired to deny her lifelong ambition. So sorry, Hillary. You know, I've said many times, I never thought that we would get Hillary in jail, but I thought we could, if we defeated her, then it would be a punishment worse than jail. And maybe that's happening. I just can't contain. I'm sorry. Anyway, additionally, they say President Obama, who pressured Clinton to concede to Trump on election night, also encouraged her to jump on board Jill Stein's recount effort to make the globalists look less defeated, said the source. It said the president felt the progressives were acting stunned and helpless and had to rise out of their stupor. Contesting the results of the election was the best and fastest way to stir the morale and the fighting spirit of a demoralized party. He is a community organizer. He works with all these people that are surrounded by George Soros folks. And this whole thing is an effort to try to delegitimize the election seriously. This is the tactic. We've pointed this out from the very beginning. As soon as they started the riots, like, oh, this looks like a color revolution from George Soros. What do? They always paint the victor as corrupt, as racist, as, well, not racist, but authoritarian, because in other parts of the world, they don't really have that is not the central leverage. It's typically a class struggle. In America, they've made it a race struggle. That was the brainchild of Bill Ayers and his people, the radicals from the 60s. They realized that they weren't going to be able to organize the communist left along the same lines that they would in Europe, so they chose to try to divide people by skin color. And that's worked pretty well, their white skin privilege. So we know that that's the way they've worked in other countries. We know that they try to delegitimize the election. They tried to personally attack and demonize the person who won. And then they get these social justice warriors, college students, to get violent and to stage a revolution. And so that's what they're trying to do. I don't think they're going to succeed, but that's the tactic on it. Also, before I get to this other news, we see that we've got the usual suspects, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, out working hard on 9/11, working not for the American people, but for their Saudi masters. Okay, the Hill reports GOP senators want to amend the Saudi 9/11 bill. So it wasn't enough that they would delay compensation to the victims of 9/11 for 15 years. Now that passed because that was not something they were going to be able to sell politically, and especially after Donald Trump pushed for the missing 28 pages out of the report. If they want to blame 9/11 on the Saudis, then let's have them compensate us for it, okay? But now we've got McCain and Graham rolling out an amendment to a law that allows the families of 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia so they can protect Saudi Arabia from the victims. They say that Saudi Arabia did this, but say no. And here's the way they're going to do it. They want to change the law, which is JASTA. It's the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, which sailed through Congress so that lawsuits can only be brought against foreign governments that, quote unquote, knowingly support terrorism. See, it's kind of like Hillary and Comey. Hillary said, oh, she's got all of these felony violations of national security, but she didn't do it knowingly. She just didn't know what she's doing. And, you know, when they deliberately erased and electronically shredded the disks, she didn't do that knowingly. There's no intent to evade the law or to break the law. Just stuff just happens, you know, for the rich and powerful at the very top. And so they want to tell us on the one hand that the Saudis did it, but then on the other hand, that they shouldn't be held responsible. And of course, the 9/11 families and Survivors United for Justice Against Terrorism are not having any part of that. They quickly slammed that. Now, at the same time, we see that there's a lot of talk. Bloomberg is pushing this idea. Listen to this. They're expanding this narrative about how Russia put out this information about Hillary Clinton. Remember the Red Scare? You know, WikiLeaks was an agent of Russia. Well, now the conspiracy theory widens because if you, through social media, put out some of the information that was exposed about Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, now you are part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. Not only right-wing, but the red-wing, I guess we should call it, the Red Scare conspiracy. And this article from Bloomberg says Russia weaponized social media. See that? Weaponized social media. This is a company called FireEye. I wonder if their corporate logo is Sauron from the Lord of the Rings. That would be appropriate, wouldn't it? Russia's government, they said, didn't just hack and leak the documents from U.S. political groups during the presidential campaign. It used social media as a weapon to influence perceptions about the election, according to cybersecurity company FireEye. They say material stolen by Russia's intelligence services was feverishly promoted by online personas and numerous fake accounts through links to leaked material and misleading narratives. Here's the fake news thing coming in as well, right? So they enlarge this. They go on to say they have to do something about the spread of fake news. And it is enlisted demands from Jill Stein to look at the election. Why? Because there's fake news, they say. See, Jill Stein is not about any kind of election reform. So she could have talked about voter machine fraud. But when we talked about it, when we talked about voter fraud, when we talked about machine fraud, we were labeled as conspiracy theorists. But now they think they can use it to stop Donald Trump. So just like globalism was originally a conspiracy theory, and then they said, oh, that doesn't exist. That's just in the mind of some people at InfoWars or whatever, this whole new world order and globalism. That's just a conspiracy theory. Then they said, no. Globalism is a good thing. You need to understand it's a good thing. Even though it may have destroyed your life, it may have destroyed the middle class in America. No, it's a good thing. Then when they lost the election, they came back to calling it a conspiracy theory again. I mean, this is like 1984. You know, first these people are your enemies. Now they're your friends. Now they're your enemies. They think we don't understand. And so after telling us this lie about all these leaks coming from Russia, and of course we had people like William Binney, people like Steve Pieczenik, they're saying, it's not coming from Russia. These are patriots in the United States who are sick and tired of this corrupt regime. They're sick and tired of seeing national security that they really think ought to be protected being just thrown in the trash by Hillary Clinton. And they don't want to see this kind of cronyism that we have seen from, and corruption that we've seen from Hillary Clinton, kind of RICO corruption, the kind of mafia corruption that we've seen with the Clinton Foundation. You know, you want to believe that WikiLeaks and InfoWars and all of social media is a Russian conspiracy? How ridiculous is this getting? But it just keeps metastasizing. And it's not limited to Bloomberg that's selling this, or the Washington Post that's selling this, or FireEye that is selling this. This is now being enacted into law. RT points out that the House has passed an intelligence bill aimed at thwarting Russia's influence over people and governments. Understand where this is coming from. They're using FireEye to sell this idea that now it's not only just the fact that we can see the corruption in these emails, the exchange of money for favors, the backroom deals that created ISIS. No. Don't look at that stuff. And if you look at that stuff, if you pass that around, you are part of the Russian conspiracy. We've got to do something about it. The House of Representatives has now passed an intelligence bill. It's got to go before the Senate. What are the chances it'll win there? Pretty good, because you got both the Republicans and the Democrats who want a deeper security state. This is a 93-page bill passed by the House, 390 to 30. It was done yesterday. It calls for setting up a new interagency panel to suppress Russia's alleged attempts to, quote, exert covert influence over peoples and governments, reports the Washington Post. So you understand that all of this nonsense that began with the leaks of the DNC about this all being a Russian conspiracy, this is now making its way into law, bipartisan law. They say that they're going to counter active measures by Russia to exert covert influence. What are they going to do? Are they going to use Voice of America to counter Russian propaganda, as they say, inside the United States? Because it was a couple of years ago that they said we're going to remove the restrictions of this propaganda media outlet so that they can broadcast into America. So they've already been laying the groundwork for that. They said this is going to include exposing falsehoods, agents of influence, corruption, human rights abuses, terrorism, and assassinations carried out by the security services or political elites of the Russian Federation or their proxies. So now they're going to be countering this. They are going to be coming after false news by the Congress itself. Yeah, it is weaponized, all right, but it's not coming from the people who share the stuff on social media. It's not coming from WikiLeaks. They're simply telling people the truth about our corrupt government. That's what they don't want to see. And when they go in and say part of this is going to be updating whistleblower protections in the intelligence community and requiring declassification review of intelligence reports on detainees transferred out of Gitmo by Obama and George Bush. Well, you know, if they want to make it easier for whistleblowers, maybe you should listen to some of the whistleblowers like William Binney, who said this isn't Russia that is pushing this. Okay? This is really dangerous, folks. This is getting to a much larger scope. And take a look at what happened to Breitbart yesterday. We have this up on Infowars.com as well. First, we had Breitbart being boycotted by Kellogg's. Kellogg's came out and said, well, we're going to end our relationship with Breitbart because we don't like the views expressed. They don't align with Kellogg's company values. So they pulled their advertising. Well, what are Kellogg's values? Breitbart came back out and did a report talking about how Amnesty International has been blasting Kellogg's for child labor. There's Kellogg's values. Okay, they don't. Breitbart evidently doesn't support child labor in third world countries, and so they don't support. So Kellogg's is going to pull out their advertising because they don't support their values. Okay, now Amnesty International has been investigating a company called Wilmar. They are the world's largest processor and merchandiser of palm oil, and they control 43% of the global palm oil trade. Wilmar provides palm oil to Kellogg's and other producers of consumer electronics. Amnesty International said there's serious human rights abuses on the plantations of Wilmar and its suppliers, including forced labor, child labor, gender discrimination, as well as exploitative and dangerous working practices. They say in terms of child labor, Amnesty says some children start working at the age of 8 and on, and all were below 15 years of age. Some children have dropped out of school. They work for most of the day. Children are carrying heavy loads as they have to carry sacks of loose fruit, and some transport wheelbarrows full of heavy palm fruit bunches over uneven terrain and narrow bridges. So this is the war that's going back and forth. And in response to that article, Breitbart then launched a counter boycott to Kellogg's. And they put it up as a Twitter hashtag, #dump Kellogg's. And that went to #1 on Twitter because people are sick and tired of this. We understand what's behind this. We understand what FireEye is doing. We understand what the House is doing, now pushing this fake news narrative and trying to shut down outlets like Breitbart for publishing stories that they don't agree with, censoring people on social media, saying that social media is now weaponized by the Russian government. And then our House and soon to be Senate saying we're going to have government ways to push back against social media is really what they're saying, folks. So understand what this is about, and understand this is one of the reasons why we fund the operation the way we do here at InfoWars, for 2 reasons. Number one, you don't need to be eating cereal that is loaded with sugar and palm oil. So we said, let's give people some healthy stuff for their to take care of themselves, take care of their families. The other part of it is so that we don't become vulnerable to these kinds of boycotts that are inevitable with big corporations. This is why the big news corporations tiptoe around these stories about Big Pharma and other issues, is because they don't want to lose their corporate sponsorship. And so they're very susceptible to this type of thing. Breitbart is not taking this line down. They're going out with a counter boycott. Hopefully that will be successful. But one of the things that we do, as I said, is we support our operation by offering you directly fine quality products that are going to help your health. One of the things that we offer is DNA Force. DNA Force is a very unique product. It has BioPQQ. It is a compound that's backed by over 175 clinical studies. It's very hard to secure. It's very expensive to produce. And it is synergistically mixed with other ingredients, other potent antioxidants like vitamin C that you can get in a lot of sources, but we get the best quality sources. We combine them with unique things like BioPQQ. And that is something that you can support our operation with, and you can support your health with, or other things like Brain Force, another very unique thing that we offer here at InfoWars that is my favorite supplement, because I can definitely feel that, you know, when you do something that helps your immune system, or you do something that helps your DNA, you're not going to feel that. You may look at yourself over a long period of time, and when I take these supplements, I see that I'm not getting sick like others in my family that would take them. I mean, typically, we're getting all of our kids to take this stuff now because we've just been taking it, my wife and I, a lot of these supplements that are there just to supplement your health. We've been taking that. We find that we're not getting as sick as frequently as the kids do. So it's like, okay, we need to extend this to everybody, not just to us. But when I take something like Brain Force, I can immediately feel how that focuses my mind. I know that it has a direct effect. So we offer unique products that gives us an independence from this kind of boycotting from corporate sponsors. And you're going to see this happening in multiple ways. They're pulling out all the stops, the fake news narrative, the censorship on social media, calling social media weaponized, and now boycotting from financial sponsors, trying to put people out of business. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. We're going to be talking to Gerald Celente. Actually, he's going to be hosting the next hour coming up, talking about what's ahead in terms of not just the election and the economy and the news that we've seen this last year, but also talking about what Gerald Celente sees as the top trends for 2017, because that's what Gerald Celente focuses on. His Trends Journal is always looking ahead to see what the next trends are. So I'm eager to see what he thinks is ahead for 2017. You know, as we look at what's happening with this carrier deal, I think it's interesting to see the narrative develop. It is a huge win for 1,000 people. It is a huge win for Donald Trump. And so they can't really deny it. Instead, what they say are things like this: don't read too much into this carrier win. That's Wired magazine, which now has become as left-wing as Politico, the Huffington Post, Washington Post. Wired magazine says, hey, don't read too much into this carrier win. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a win. It's a win for Donald Trump, and he's still 50 days away from becoming president, but he's already doing things I've never seen a president do before in my life, and that is picking up the phone to actually save American jobs, doing things that actually fulfill his campaign promises, and he's not even president yet. And I want to go back and play a clip from Barack Obama mocking Donald Trump, saying he's not going to be able to save your jobs. He wouldn't even refer to him by name. He'll say a guy, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give him any publicity here. Here's that clip.
But for those folks who've lost their job right now because a plant went down to Mexico, that isn't going to make you feel better. And so what we have to do is to make sure that folks are trained for the jobs that are coming in now, because some of those jobs of the past are just not going to come back.
Yeah, because you're going to put entire industries in bankruptcy.
Like the person you just mentioned, who I'm not going to advertise for, that he's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it. He just says, well, I'm going to negotiate a better deal. Well, how exactly are you going to negotiate that? What magic wand do you have? And usually the answer is he doesn't have an answer. So.
Yeah, he does have a magic wand. And he doesn't even have your power base, Barack. You're still president, but you wouldn't do anything to try to save these carrier jobs, would you? So here's a guy, and he's 50 days away from taking the office that you have used to say you're going to bankrupt the coal industry, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to help your friends at Solyndra. You didn't help anybody, Barack, and you denigrated this and said, has he got a magic wand or whatever? Well, how did he do that? We don't know the details yet. The Hill and other people are saying that Trump puts companies on notice with this carrier deal. They say it's a statement on Wednesday from Carrier said that there were incentives that were offered in Indiana that were an important consideration of the decision. So that's something we need to take a look at. But still, there's other ways that he could have done this other than just incentivizing it to stay. And of course, these same types of things could have been done by Barack Obama. He did a lot of incentives to try to get solar power put in there, which I disagree with. I don't think that's what the government ought to be doing, is passing money from one favored industry or company to another. But he wouldn't do that for these people. He wouldn't do it for the people in West Virginia. They say Trump's team argued the carrier decision shows that Trump can build a positive climate for business. That's the key thing. See, that's what the president can do. He can create an environment that allows people to create jobs. He can create an environment that allows you to pursue your own economic future. Maybe that's even the path up for you. That economic mobility is to even create your own company. They said if you create a climate where employers feel the incentives are good enough to stay, taxes will be lowered, regulations won't be oppressive, they won't be under the burden of Obamacare, they'll feel like it's a more hospitable business climate. Many of them may reconsider and stay, said Kellyanne Conway. That's what we need to see. We'll talk a little bit more about this on the other side of the break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And then Gerald Celente. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. In the next segment, we're going to be joined by Gerald Celente. In this segment, I want to finish up what I was talking about with Carrier, what that tells us about Donald Trump's. He hasn't even hit the ground running. I wouldn't say he's hit the ground running. He hasn't even hit the ground yet, but he's running the country, and he's running it in the right direction, unlike Barack Obama. You just heard in that last segment, Obama mocking him. How's he going to do this? You got a magic wand? No, he's got a phone, and he's going to use it. Instead of dictating mandates to you, he's going to call people and say, hey, let's keep these jobs here. Now, how did he do it? And that's the key thing, because as they point out, the devil is in the details. So did he do it by calling them up and saying, we're going to create an environment here that's going to be very favorable to do business in America, but it's going to be unfavorable to people who move out of this country, who are bringing goods into this country. So you're going to be better off here. That would be a great thing that he could do. Now, one of the other things that he could have done, and we hope that he did it this way, because they're part of United Technologies. It's a big defense contractor. And as some people have pointed out, if he went there and was simply using his leverage and said, look, how about if we're going to buy from you as an American company here in America, wouldn't it be good if you also bought American in terms of your labor force, right? Why don't we say, let's have a Buy American, and we'll do it from the top down. And so these companies that are making goods, instead of buying Chinese labor or buying Mexican labor, how about if they buy American labor? And then we will buy your products. We'll buy your Carrier air conditioning. And if you've got the president coming in and saying to a major defense contractor, United Technologies, that owns Carrier, maybe we'll look at you a little bit differently if you take your company out of this country. We won't consider you quite so much an American company anymore. So we might look at some people who are a little bit more loyal to America and Americans. That would be a good thing to do, I think. And we've got other people who would look askew at using incentives, and we should all look askew at that. I mean, the king of crony capitalism, of course, is Elon Musk. He's gotten over $4 billion, according to research done by the LA Times, other companies, in terms of incentives for creating jobs. We don't need to replicate that with all these different states competing against each other to get battery factories or whatever it is. I mean, we've even had situations here in Austin where they tried to incentivize some investment companies to come in. And we look at this. Usually these people get $100,000 or more per job that they create. We don't need to be doing that. They don't incentivize expansion for small and medium-sized companies. It's only the big guys at top that get this kind of incentive. So we don't need to be doing that. I don't like corporate welfare. And but I think it would be a positive, as this guy, Chart Westcott, he's a Texas-based investor, he says, saving American jobs using leverage and bully pulpit of the U.S. president is a great thing. Saving American jobs by creating an environment where we have a conducive environment for doing business, and all businesses, all workers benefit from that environment. That's a really good thing. And I think we can see that in this economic plan that's coming in. But if it's something where he's going in and he's incentivizing it by giving them special kickbacks in terms of taxes that other businesses don't get, I don't like that. That is special favors. That is crony capitalism. Now, as we look at the rest of this team as it's developing, I think it's interesting that Politico calls it Trump's conservative dream team. One person who's with the Club for Growth, an organization that I don't necessarily usually agree with, but they say it's the most conservative cabinet since Reagan. I don't think he's using an ideological lens to pick people. I think he's genuinely looking for people who share his priorities for these agencies. And I think when I look at his picks, there's a lot of articles today about Mnuchin pointing out his connections and others' connections to Goldman Sachs, saying, hey, he foreclosed on a 90-year-old widow for a 27-cent default on her mortgage, that type of thing. Look, these people, if they share Trump's program, I think we need to at least give them a chance and see what's happening. I was very concerned about some of the things that I had seen in Trump's past, but we need to look at what he is doing now. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and we're joined right now by Gerald Celente. And, of course, Gerald Celente is no stranger to the InfoWars audience. He's a trend forecaster, publisher of Trends Journal. You can find that at trendsresearch.com. He describes himself as a political atheist, so I'm curious to see what Gerald Celente thinks about this post-election, if he's optimistic about the future. We've talked to him, especially we're very interested to have you, Gerald, at the end of each year, giving us a forecast of what you think is coming up for the next year. So I know you're going to talk about what you think is going to be coming up in 2017. I know war was a big part of the forecast the last several years, and you were right about that. We had a president who began, even before he took office, he was given a Nobel Peace Prize, and then we saw him start more wars than any president in my memory recently. Hopefully, maybe things are going to cool down with this, but let's talk about the economy first. How do you feel in terms of the stock market? Looks very optimistic. Consumers look very optimistic at this point. We've seen President Trump elect working with Carrier, and of course, as I mentioned in the last segment, that could be a bad thing if they are bribing this company to stay in the United States, but maybe it's a good thing. Maybe he just applied pressure to them and said, hey, you're a defense contractor, you're owned by a defense contractor, United Technologies. Maybe you should think about buying American labor so that we buy your American products. He might have also explained to them, we're going to create a very favorable environment here with a tax restructure. What's your take on this, Gerald?
Well, before I go into that, and I was listening to your segment, and I'd just like to comment on a few of the things that you were talking about, if I may.
Sure.
And one of them is, for example, how the media immediately after Trump's victory, how they came after him. I remember USA Today the next day, as soon as he showed that he won, or 2 days later, it was Trump goes into office with 76 or 74 lawsuits following him. That was the headline in USA Today when you went online. I want to show you the hypocrisy of the prostitute media. And when I was on with Alex on Election Day, and Alex kept saying, this is the end of Hillary Clinton, the end of the mainstream media, and I kept repeating over and over again, I said, Alex, you got it right. That's exactly what we're seeing. The mainstream media is dead. They came out with all this crap about fake news because they're trying to get even with everybody else for all the wrong calls that they've made. They're declining revenues. When you're looking at newspapers, the Wall Street Journal's down 40% from what it used to be just within the last 3 weeks. You're looking at the ratings going down, plummeting after this election. They're doing this trying to gain lost audiences by attacking other people. So I want to show you the hypocrisy of these little lowlives rather than whether or not you like Trump. And again, as a political atheist, I look at things to the way they are, not the way I want them to be. But also, I'm an American, and I'm American first. So we have a new president. We all, again, as we have over the decades, you may not have liked who you got into office, but hey, let's try to make this work the best we can.
Yeah,
so I want to show you factually, rather than just speaking words, about the blatant hypocrisy of these little prostitute medias with cojones the size of mothballs. Oh, and by the way, I believe we should be able to say the real words, because one of the victories of Trump is political correctness is dead.
Yeah.
He killed it. He murdered it. And also politics is dead. People are disgusted with it. And it's not only in the United States, and we'll talk about it more, it's global. It's the Freedom Party in Austria. It's the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany. It's Le Pen's party and the new guy that just won the primary, Fillon. They want to bring back the respect and dignity of what their cultures represented. It's not about politics. It's not about, the other thing they keep saying about Trump bringing in all of these people that are unqualified, don't have government experience. Oh, government experience? Oh, you mean a politician? The guys that sell you out and get paid off for it, and they call it campaign contributions from what we used to call in the Bronx bribes and payoffs? That kind of experience? No, he's bringing in a whole clean slate for the most part. Not all of it. He still did some political stuff, bringing in McConnell's wife and others. Separating that and bringing it to the higher level with Mnuchin and Wilbur Ross, this is a whole clean slate and looking at things differently. But I want to go back to the hypocrisy. Here's Obama, the media promoting the liar in chief. Oh, no experience? How about I'm a community organizer from Chicago who organized nothing, and I wrote about it in the Trends Journal before he got elected, admitting that he did nothing of any substance as a community organizer. Oh, that little boy, that liar in chief you mentioned about, the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner who gets into office and then it escalates the Afghan war by 33,000 troops. Over 1,000 of our men killed, thousands wounded, slaughtered tens of thousands of Afghans, the Libyan war. Here is the coverage immediately after Obama won. Now compare it to the little prostitutes that are attacking Trump on every little issue. Check out that cover.
Oh, yeah. New.
New York, all new. You ready for this? The truly radical politics of Barack Obama. Radical politics? Hey, you little lying SOB. You promised to bring in a whole new crew when you went into Washington. You were going to sweep it clean. And who did you bring in? You brought in Bush's murderers. You brought in the Clinton team. Radical? Yeah, you guys got it wrong. New Yorker, you're full of crap. I got more. Newsweek. Look at that picture, huh? Wow, does he look brilliant. What do we have here? Obama's America. Who we are now. Oh, hope and change you can believe in. Yes, small change. Hey, got change of a penny? Here we go. Look at this. Look at this, huh? The perfect first family. Introducing President Obama as Barack and Michelle settle into the White House. How will this new era change America and TV? How will it change it? Again, no change. More of the same political crap, a guy that lied his way into office. Again, I'm doing this to show the juxtaposition of how the media came out and is attacking Trump immediately after he got elected, while they're kissing Obama's you-know-what. And here, look at this.
Oh, it was a total love fest. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, look at that.
Look at this. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new president and the burdens that await him. Great expectations. This little clown of a traitor of a man talking about Trump not having the experience to do anything. Great expectations, again, from a community organizer that organized nothing. A little nothing of a man with a bad attitude who learned how to act really well when Oprah Winfrey took her under her arm and made him the great teleprompted president. I got more. You ready?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Obama. The celebrity of the century. Well,
yeah, that was actually correct. He is just a celebrity to them, isn't he?
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Hey, politics is show business for ugly people.
That's right.
We have the proof. You ready for this one? This one may knock you off your chair. So hold on.
Hamilton. He's in the role of Alexander Hamilton on Broadway now. That's what he's going to do after he leaves office.
You got it. Look at this hypocrisy.
Oh, that's funny.
So I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying.
You know, he offered us hope, Gerald. What we got was the envy of socialism. He said we're going to have change, but what he tried to do was to, and successfully nearly, pretty much shut down and did bankrupt the coal industry, pretty close to it, but also changing America by bringing in people who are workers, bringing in people from these countries that they destroyed, that they set on fire. He wants to change America. He wants to change America demographically. And so we've seen a lot of that stuff. But I think what we're really seeing now is a real hope from Americans that we're going to see something done about the economy. And it's truly amazing. Have you ever, Gerald, seen a president, certainly not a president-elect, get out and already stop 2 factories that were going to be moving out of the United States?
No. Again,
I've never seen that.
This is one of our top trends.
Yeah.
It's new. It's the end of politics. These guys, look, I began my career just briefly at a graduate school. I used to run political campaigns. The first one, I was the number 2 guy running the campaign in Yonkers, New York. And we're talking a city of 300,000 people. And then I worked in Westchester County, the richest county in America at the time, running political campaigns. I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate, designed and instructed American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University. And I was a chief government affairs specialist in D.C. for many years for the chemical industry. I have pictures of me and Reagan, this one, that one. I know what it looks like. There's nothing there. They're low-life politicians.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. We got to take a quick break. We're going to be right back with Gerald Celente, trendsresearch.com. Thank you so much, Gerald. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about 2017. What do you see as the trends for 2017? Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and our guest is Gerald Celente, trend forecaster, his publisher of Trends Journal. You can find him at trendsresearch.com. And, of course, if you're a regular listener to InfoWars, you hear Gerald Celente on frequently. Very, very wise person. I want to hear what he has to say about trends coming up. And you know, as we were talking about the aftermath of the election, Gerald, you said that immediately they began attacking Trump. We have seen that type of thing come after each one of his picks. But the issue is he going to keep his campaign promises? We just had an election. People said he made some commitments, some policies that he wanted to do. And people want to give him a chance to see if that's going to happen. One of the ways that they've attacked him is immediately after the election, they say, well, you're not really serious about this policy or that policy or the other one, are you? Or they look at it and they say, well, because of these people that he's got here, they're going to subvert him and co-opt this. And that's something we need to be concerned about. We need to keep an eye on that, hold his feet to the fire. But right now, he's running full speed in the same direction that he was in the campaign. As a matter of fact, I think he's doubled down. He cleared his desk of this $25 million lawsuit at a large cost to himself. I think he believed that he was right. I think he could have certainly gotten a better deal if he had taken it to trial. Even if they'd split the baby there, he wouldn't have paid $25 million. But he wants to clear his desk of these entanglements of his business. And in a couple of weeks, he's talking about how he's going to do that. So, I mean, how do you read this? Bannon has said if they deliver on their promises, and it looks like when we see Mnuchin come out and after he's picked his Treasury Secretary, he goes right down the list of the economic policies that Trump wanted to accomplish and said, these are our priorities. So it looks like they're on the same page. If they deliver, as Bannon said, we will probably see a restructure of politics for 50 years. But here's the other thing, Gerald. If they don't deliver on these promises, I think we're going to see a big lurch, a blowback, and see the country lurch to the left towards socialism again. But let's hope that they're going to move forward and fulfill these promises that they've said to people. How do you feel about that?
Well, in our trend forecast, we're saying that Trump has 2 years to do whatever he wants to do. There's nothing there to stop him. Again, it's the death of politics.
Yes.
Ryan, McConnell, Lindsey Graham, McCain. He took over the Republican Party. He went for the top. He knocked out Jeb Bush in the first round of the first presidential debate of the Republican Party. There's nothing there. Again, I was mentioning before my history in being there. I know how easy it is to change it. And that's very important. So he's going to do what he wants to do. And what they won't push through, he'll go directly to the people for. Just as he's doing it now in bypassing the media by using whether it's Twitter or YouTube. On the economic front, let's go back again prior to the election. The markets went up and down on Hillary Clinton's poll ratings. When Hillary Clinton was up in the polls, the market would go up. When she went down in the polls, the markets would go down. Just before Election Day, when the FBI Director Comey decided not to pursue any more action against Clinton on a Friday, Monday, the day before Election Day, the market closed up 371 points on the anticipation that Clinton would win and that it would be positive for the stock market and it would be negative if Trump got in. And if Trump got in, also it would be negative for gold. The reverse has happened. We're seeing a rally in the stock market like nothing we've seen, with 3 of the indexes reaching all-time highs and gold going much lower. So our forecast is this, and we revised it. And that is that we're going to see continued growth in the economy. And that Trump's policies, a lot of them make sense. However, to put it all out there, on the thing about rebuilding the infrastructure, it's only $1 trillion over several years. They say up to 10. That's only $100 billion a year. And in the size of an economy this big, that doesn't account for much. And to put it back into perspective, when the liar-in-chief got elected, the con-mander Obama in 2009, he came up with a stimulus program of $830 billion, and it didn't do anything. So it has to be much bigger than that, and the plans aren't clear. However, the reality is that what they're saying about cutting taxes across the board and about renegotiating trade deals overseas is very positive. The deals do stink. Again, if you look at the facts, David, what do we have? 22 years of negative trade policy with Mexico?
Oh, absolutely.
22 years?
We had a rough parity with them, and immediately as NAFTA was published or passed, we had a $15 billion deficit with them, and it's gone as high as $75 billion. It's never gone below $15 billion in all these years. Stay with us. We're going to be right back with Gerald Celente looking at trends for 2017. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and my guest is Gerald Celente. We're talking about trends coming up in the next year and also what Gerald sees in the wake of the election. One of the things that we've been seeing, of course, is the push saying that that everything is fake news, that is not real fake news. In other words, the people who have been giving us fake news for decades, CNN, Washington Post, all these people, their new narrative is, of course, fake news. But we're also seeing some teeth put into that. We see Kellogg's pulling their sponsorship from Breitbart. Breitbart coming back and saying, oh, okay, well, let's boycott Kellogg then. And take a look at what Amnesty International says about their products. They're not only do they have garbage like palm oil in them, but they also do it with child labor. And so that became the #1 hashtag trend on Twitter. That's what we're trying to do here at InfoWars. We're trying to give you products that are good for your health and also have a financial independence from these kinds of corporate sponsors that can try to shut down our operation. And I just want to remind you that we've got Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix that's back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. And, of course, that's the affordable, great-tasting Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix. It's loaded with a full month supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body needs. It's the platinum standard of multivitamin products. It's in a very easy-to-take format. You can just drink it. It's not a lot of pills that you have to swallow. A full multivitamin drink mix. It's all plant-derived from the highest quality lab standards. So these things are either plant-derived. There's nothing in it that is GMO. It's got all the types of vitamins that you need, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, magnesium, selenium, all these different. You can take a look at our reviews on InfoWarsLife.com as well as the ingredients in it. You see that it gives you a broad base of support for your diet. That's how we keep our independence. That's how we help you with high-quality products that will help you and your family to maintain your health and protect you from the kind of toxic things that you're exposed to constantly in the environment, in your diet, in the cosmetics that you come in contact with, from soaps to shampoos. So take a look at the products that we have at InfoWarsLife.com. That's the way we support our operation. We thank you for your support. Now, Gerald, in the last segment, you were talking about the fact that at Trends Journal, you said that Donald Trump had about 2 years to do whatever he wanted because he's got a majority in the House and Senate, and he's got an agenda. One of the key things in that is to get rid of Obamacare. And we see on Politico, of course, they're always going to be pushing an agenda that is anti-Trump and anti-Republican, anti-freedom. They're saying that the GOP may delay Obamacare replacement for years. They would love to see this, and quite frankly, that is the great danger, is that the GOP establishment would drag their heels on Obamacare. They say that both sides of Capitol Hill are coalescing around a plan to vote to repeal the law in early 2017, but to delay the effective date for that repeal as long as 3 years. If they do that, that really is going to be a problem for the Trump administration. I think he needs to move quickly. I think he is going to move quickly. He's talked about what he's going to do in the first 100 days. He's been very active. Here we are even still 50 days before he becomes president. What's your take on this? Do you think that the GOP establishment, which we all know really would like to see Obamacare continue, do you think they're going to drag their feet and subvert this effort to try to get rid of Obamacare?
Again, there's nothing standing in Trump's way. He'll do whatever he wants to do. He'll steamroll over Ryan, McConnell, Graham, McCain. He did it before, and he'll do it again.
Yeah.
Again, that's the point I wanted to keep making.
Mm-hmm.
When you're inside that club, you know, and you're an outsider, you know how easy it is to change it. And he knows that. I mean, he spent his lifetime around these people. He knows who they are. He knows how he bought them off and did what he wanted to do. So they're not going to be able to stop him at all. And I also want to follow up on what you were saying also about the products that you're selling and the independence of InfoWars and the need for it, particularly in this time as we're seeing the collapse. There is no more fourth estate. The fourth estate being the one that watched over the judicial, the executive, and the congressional branch. They're dead, as we see by the prostitutes that keep selling the Beltway lies. And the products that you sell, because people ask me continually, what can I do to make positive change? And I keep saying, well, the first thing is that you have to be in the best shape you can possibly be in, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And I don't mean religious when I say spiritually. I'm talking, you know, in a different tone. But on the physical and the products that you're bringing to the public, as opposed to, for example, like you were talking about Kellogg, and the other crap out there, it's not only essential for the people, for themselves personally, to consider supporting InfoWars and other organizations that are doing not the alternative news, we're the real news now. That's the alternative, but also to get in the best shape that you can get into so that you can keep pushing this movement forward. And the movement forward is happening around the world. Look what they just did over there in South Korea. People went to the streets and they just about threw out their President Park. Look what's going on in South Africa. Look what's going on in France, in England with Brexit. In Italy, by the way, this is very important. This Sunday is going to be a referendum in Italy whether or not to go along with Fonzi's constitutional amendment. I mean, Renzi. How could I get him mixed?
Maybe Renzi jumped the shark too, huh?
Yeah. and if that's defeated, you're going to see chaos in the global markets, particularly in the banking markets in Europe, that are going to be very, very shaking on Monday. So people should really be in touch with that, plus the election of the Freedom Party in Austria on Sunday. So what I'm saying is these movements all tie together.
Yes.
And it's happening in America. But again, the people have to go out and support not only with their boots on the ground in America, but also to put their money where their mind is. So going back to what Trump is going to do with Obamacare, he's going to do what he wants. There will be nothing standing in his way from a guy that's been on the other side and seeing the lay of the land. And particularly the two people that he brought in with the Treasury Secretary and Commerce. They're two very strong-willed guys. Like them or not, the things they've done, the fact is they know that the deals stink and they have to be redesigned. Now, I want to talk about also the negatives, and that is interest rates are going up and the dollar's getting stronger. We're now at the dollar's hitting almost a 14-year high against the basket of currencies. The stronger the dollar gets, David, all of this money that was borrowed under quantitative easing and all of this negative and zero interest rate policy, particularly in the emerging markets, they borrowed it in dollars. As the dollar gets stronger, they have to pay back that debt as their currencies get weaker with more of their currencies. So we're looking at, depending on, this 95%, according to the experts, that they're going to raise interest rates in a few weeks, the Fed. How much will they raise them? And how much will those raise in interest rates also affect the housing market? You're seeing already warnings coming out from the people in the auto industry. David, you don't have a job? You lost yours? You don't have a house? You have no income coming in, but you want a new car? Come on over. I'll sell you one.
Yeah.
You remember what they've been doing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, with interest rates going up, there's already panic starting to hit the auto industry. So this isn't going to be smooth sailing, is what I'm saying. So going back to gold, gold right now is in bear market territory, the amount that it's lost. And the downside, we're saying, could be about another $100, which in comparison to where it could go, we see is very small. And again, this is not financial advice. I'm a forecaster.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that with the other destabilization going on, particularly in the world markets, we could talk about the U.S. index. Take a look at the Euro indexes, the DAX, the CAC, the Italian FTSE. Italian FTSE is down almost 24%, 24 points this year. So 24%.
Mm-hmm.
The only one up is England, and they're talking about Brexit. So what I'm saying is you can't only look at the United States. You have to take a global view of this and put it all in perspective. On the home front, you look at our top trend for 2016, this year, self-sustaining economy. Make it at home, buy it at home. So now going into our trends as an on-trendpreneur, what would I be selling now? Made in USA, made in America with pride.
And that could be a key. That could be a key selling point that Trump was telling to carriers. Like, look, put your air conditioners out there as a made in America product.
Now take that to the on-trendpreneur level. Take it to the products that InfoWar is putting in front of its customers. When I go out, I try to buy organic every time I can. So I go over to the place and I want to buy, hey, being an Italian, I eat a lot of garlic, I see organic garlic from China, from Mexico. You think I'm going to buy this crap?
Right.
So what I'm saying is, become an on-trendpreneur. Start making your shirts, your shoes, everything that you can. You want to break out of the system and be free and run your life the way you want. Trump is opening up a door now with a self-sustaining economy like we have not seen since the 1960s.
Yeah. I would even go back further and say back to the creation of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, where they changed our tax structure. And instead of taxing goods and services coming across our borders, they decided they would tax us internally. It was Jefferson that said he had eliminated all internal taxation as his second inaugural address. So he goes, nobody in America knows a tax man. And so under that kind of a mindset from Jefferson until the creation of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, that was the way they ran the constitutionally sized government, was by taxes simply on goods coming in. And we did have exactly what you're describing here, Gerald, an internal self-sustaining economy.
And again, we're 320 million people.
Yes.
And we have natural and human resources that match none. So that's what I'm saying, in the sense that we have it all here. So when you talk about our top trends, I cannot emphasize enough to start making it in America with pride. Start doing it in a way, again, one of our trends is true nostalgia. Here, think of the slogan, Make America Great Again.
Mm-hmm.
Again.
Yes.
So again goes back to the past. Start recreating the past, but not in the way it was in the past, and start retrofitting it for the future. So it becomes in style. It becomes in entertainment. And this is very important, David. Donald Trump didn't just defeat Hillary Clinton. He defeated Obama.
Yes.
Obama went out, campaigned like we've never seen an elected president campaign, a president in office campaign before.
Absolutely right. Yeah, we've never seen that before, have we?
Never seen that.
Yeah.
He lost. The rappers lost. The Beyoncés lost. Hollywood lost. The Katzenbergs, the Spielbergs, they hit an iceberg. Hollywood lost with their $100,000 a plate dinners to eat a lot of crap to vote for Clinton. They lost. De Niro lost. They all lost. Clooney lost. What I'm saying, Silicon Valley lost. The Zuckerbergs, the Schmitz, they lost. They lost. People have to get it in their head. The biggest ones went down.
Yes.
They were beaten with a Trump card, and everybody holds that card. What Trump showed is that he can do it, you can do it, from somebody outside the system. What I'm saying is, if Silicon Valley was so strong, if Hollywood was so strong, if the entertainment industry was so strong, if the music industry was so strong, they would have defeated Trump. It shows you how weak they are and the opportunities available to fill it with new.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, it was also the media and it was the establishment of both the Democrats and the Republicans that Trump defeated. That's why so many of us believe that he doesn't need Mitt Romney. He can transcend him. We're going to be talking to Owen Shroyer in the third hour. He's with the very first victory tour stop that Donald Trump is doing. And I think, Gerald, that's a key thing, to see him after the election going out and meeting with the mass of people. We always heard Ronald Reagan saying he was going to go over the heads of the Washington establishment to the people. Trump is showing that he's really doing that, I think, with these victory tours.
Again, this is what I'm saying. He's in total control.
Yeah.
He'll do what he wants. Will he do what he says he was going to do? That could only be decided by him. Nobody could figure is going to know. I'll tell you one thing that I'm surprised that he didn't do is reach out to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, Reagan's former Assistant Treasury Secretary. There's a guy that I believe he should really have on his team.
Yeah, that would be a great pick.
And if he's going to pick a Supreme Court judge, who's better than Judge Andrew Napolitano?
Yes.
You know, these are the kind of people that would really bring in the wisdom and the outside look from the inside people that would really shake things up.
Yeah, when he was looking at Treasury Secretary, I did a thing in the Monday night nightly news. I talked about John Allison, that he had come by and talked to him, and I really was not aware of him, even though I knew about BB&T. We had used them in our business. And this is a guy with 40 years experience in the banking industry. He's a really strong free market guy. He understands the problems with the Fed. And I was very hopeful. It's a good thing that he even talked to him, and I hope that there's a place in his administration for somebody like Allison, even though he didn't pick him for Treasury Secretary, somebody who's very competent and ideologically strictly free market libertarian on this and anti-Federal Reserve. That would have been a great pick, and I certainly would like to see Judge Napolitano on the Supreme Court. That would be fantastic. We got some more segments coming up with Gerald Celente. We got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight on this December 1st. We're already into December. We're about 50 days away from a Trump administration. We've been talking to Gerald Celente, a trend forecaster, publisher of Trends Journal. You can find that at trendsresearch.com. We've been talking about what Gerald sees in terms of the aftermath of the election, what he sees coming up economically in the next year. Let's talk about war, Gerald. We've seen the Russian reset of Hillary Clinton, which turned out to be a reset of the Cold War. This kind of brinksmanship. We've seen Obama escalate the policies of George Bush and others in terms of regime change and nation building. What do you think we're going to have with President Trump? He's talked about the kind of détente. He hasn't used the word détente, but what he's talking about is an easing and a pulling back from this brinksmanship that we've seen, pulling back from this ridiculous idea of nation building. What do you see happening?
Again, you know, our system of trend forecasting, we call it globalnomic, making connections around the world and between different fields. So let's go back to the election that just happened this past Sunday in France with Fillon winning. One of his major points was to make peace with Russia in the sense that and the one coming up on Sunday in Austria with the Freedom Party. They both pointed out that the sanctions against Russia have hurt everyone, including the Europeans, going back to a self-sustaining economy. When they put these sanctions on Russia, Russia became more self-sustaining. So they hurt all the people that were exporting products into Russia. So you're having it now coming from, and as well as Le Pen in France, and the same thing going on in Italy. It's one country after another. In the Netherlands, they voted against, having more aid for Ukraine. So what we're seeing is people want peace, and they want it in the United States too. Polls come out that they don't run in this country, showing how badly people in America want peace. So when you listen to Trump, for example, saying things like in the Syrian war, brought to you by the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner Obama and Hillary Clinton and Frankenstein Kerry, that Assad has to go. He said, no, we're not going to give, quote, those rebels, moderate rebels, any more support. We don't even know who they are.
That's right.
Which, of course, we've all been saying for years.
Mm-hmm.
That's very positive. There is no profit in war. That's a myth. All it's doing is draining out. It's what Eisenhower said. 5-star general, not these little boys that play commander-in-chief that couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. All they do is play golf, shoot pool, play basketball, and drive pickup trucks. This is a guy that led, the supreme commander of the Allied forces in World War II. 5-star general. His farewell address that after being president 2 terms, that the military-industrial complex is robbing the nation of the genius of the scientists, sweat of the laborers, and future of the children. So now going back to Trump, if he goes on and says, I'm going to build 70 more warships for the Navy, for what? We're spending, 11 times, more than 11 of the top countries put together on defense. What
Absolutely.
Are we spending, about $600 billion? When you don't put all the other stuff into it, it's over $1 trillion. And what is Russia spending? Try $66 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is, if he redesigns the country into the plans of what we put together as Occupy Peace, no foreign entanglements, close the bases overseas, and we don't need NATO anymore.
I agree. Hang on. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back on the other side of that. Yeah, you're right, Gerald. Nobody wants this except for these Dr. Strangelove creeps and their bunkers. We don't want it. The Russian people don't want it. The Europeans don't want it. We'll talk more about that on the other side of the break with Gerald Celente. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and this is our final segment with Gerald Celente. In the next segment, we're going to have a special report from Alex Jones talking about the latest attack on him from mainstream media, Anderson Cooper, and his response to that. And then at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Owen Schroyer, who is following, actually, he's at the very first victory tour. I guess, what do you call them? They're not concerts, but it's a rally. I guess it could be a concert. They don't have any, they don't have Beyonce, fortunately, performing there, but it's the first victory rally that Donald Trump is doing. And that's a very different approach that Donald Trump is taking to what all the other politicians have done. I want to go back to war and give Gerald Celente the final comment on this. Gerald, I've seen a lot of signs that it's not just the people that you mentioned in Europe who are very interested in pulling back from this brink, pulling back from the sanctions and the increase in tensions that we've seen under Obama and under Hillary, but also the Russian people themselves. There was an article I reported on a couple of times about how this one town wants to rename a street there that is called Godless Street. That was what the godless atheists named the streets there to promote that. It's called Godless Street, and they want to rename it from Godless to Donald Trump. They got a petition going there because they realize that they've had a loaded gun pointed at their head by Obama and Hillary, and they're hoping it's going to be a new day. Are you hopeful that that's going to be the case with Donald Trump?
Yes, I think it's going to be, particularly with Russia, and he's made it clear with that. And again, going back, though, if he's going to spend all this money on a military, again, I was a keynote speaker at VMI, Virginia Military Institute, on New Millennium Warfare. And, there's a saying that generals are always fighting the last war. And the Navy is the last war. We're looking at hypersonic missiles now.
That's right.
We're looking at a whole different method of warfare. Look at that piece of garbage, that $4 billion Zumwalt ship that they just had to tow out of the Panama Canal.
That's right. It only had one engine, and when that broke down, they had to tow it back.
Yeah. I mean, the aircraft carriers, the Navy is truly sitting ducks.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we need to really put, where are our priorities? And to me, the priority is to really rebuild America. And the way you do it is by investing not $1 trillion over 10 years in infrastructure, but really making it happen big time in many different areas. So the opportunity is there. Where will he go with it? I don't know. But again, the warning signs are flashing. Here's something that just came out. It doesn't make it in the press institute media. Erdogan, the head of Turkey over there, he said, quote, "We entered Syria to enter the rule of the tyrant al-Assad, who terrorizes with state terror."
That's right.
You invaded another country.
Yes.
You don't like the guy? What did he do to you? What's the United States doing there? What's France doing there, and the UK? What I'm saying is we still have those neocons out there in the United States who are psychopaths and love murder.
Yes.
So that's what Trump is going to be up against, plus people like Erdogan.
Yes, yes. And Alex talked about that yesterday. He said that's essentially a declaration of war to say we entered your country to overthrow you. And we know that's what's been happening. We know that was the plan of Hillary, just as they did in Libya. And look at Libya after Gaddafi. He's not a good guy, but look at how much worse that made the entire Middle East situation, setting it on fire, creating ISIS. And we've pointed out, or you've pointed out for the last several years, how they not only created ISIS, but they train them, they fund them, they continually give them more weapons. And so hopefully that's going to change. I share your concern about a defense buildup. I'm even concerned about the federal government being involved in building up the infrastructure. My greatest hope for the Trump administration is that they would cut taxes even bigger than Ronald Reagan did. We know what a benefit that would have to get government out of the way so we can run our own lives. Always great to hear from you, Gerald Celente. Thank you so much again. If you want to find Trends Journal, the website is trendsresearch.com. Thank you so much, Gerald.
Thank you, David.
And we're going to be right back with a special report.
As all of you know, President Obama, the lame duck that'll be out of office in 50 days, has been traveling around the world, Europe, Latin America, North America, bad-mouthing all the fake news. Well, there's an article from Truth Revolt up on Infowars.com that has large excerpts of a fluff piece done by the dying publication Rolling Stone that, by the way, Infowars is about 50 times bigger than. Not bragging, it's just important to rub the dead dinosaurs' noses in the mud because these are the fake news deceivers. But they go beyond fake news. In this Rolling Stone interview, he goes further than ever before. We've played the clips of his speeches in Greece and his speeches in Germany and his speeches all over the world the last 3 weeks. Since they were defeated in the general election. And in those speeches, he says, we need strong centralized media to counter the fake media. We need to have ways to control and shut down the fake media. Well, in the new piece that's up on Infowars.com, he tells Rolling Stone that he wants state backing and funding to prop up the media. You go read it for yourself. So this is just the next level, like the BBC. That Infowars.com is bigger than, according to Quantcast and a bunch of other services. Just thought I'd add that. Again, rub their noses in it. These are pathetic jokes. 3.7 billion pounds a year spent at the BBC. They admit almost their whole mission is just online, BBC.com and Infowars. Only one small part of what we do is bigger than them. But this is not about a brag fest. It's about understanding why they're doing this. We're killing them, and so now they're going to the states saying, shut down our competition. I always talked about this perfect storm, that if we were able to focus and take action and put the truth out about the New World Order and how they were establishing a corporate world government and defeat their whole Stonewall operation, like they do on everything. Oh, we don't want your guns, but they do. Oh, Obamacare is free, but it isn't. There's no IRS penalties, but there is. If we ever break them of their stonewalling, then all the confidence disappears. Their strategy was an all or nothing. But when you hit that point of their collapse, they're going to then go for governmental censorship of real independent media. Doesn't matter whether it's left-wing, right-wing, anti-war, pro-war, it doesn't matter. They want centralized control. And the big issue is, whether it's the Pope or the Communist Chinese or the Saudi Arabians or the EU, the perfect storm is here. We're collapsing corrupt governments and collapsing dinosaur media, pretty much already state-run. He is now openly preparing to fuse with government and the UN, as the Soros email showed via DC Leaks and WikiLeaks, and try to censor us and shut us down. And to do that, they're going to go to new levels of fake media and say and do things that are completely 100% untrue in a desperate attempt to get their flagging minion audience to support what they're doing. The problem is we have a Bill of Rights and Constitution and due process. And so good luck for you actually trying to totally censor us. Though they're going to delist our apps, though they're going to try to put filter systems on us, though they're going to lie about us, though they're going to try to block us out in Europe, they still will not be successful, especially if we point out what's happening while it's happening to the public, because if we actually fight back, resistance is victory. It'll build our political muscles and our free speech muscles, like the example of the EU's trying to ban, and France is trying to ban pro-life information online. I mean, that's just outrageous, folks. But again, the answer is resist it. Everybody who's pro-life, start posting information. Start doing it globally. Because just as they attack us on a global scale, people that want freedom worldwide, we're also fighting on a global scale. Americans helped fight for Brexit. Folks that were part of Brexit helped fight for Trump. Vice versa. We're going to help fight for Le Pen. We're going to help fight for the folks in Catalonia. We're going to help fight for the Russians to stay out of the New World Order. This is a global nationalistic awakening, what I call 1776 worldwide. But it is truly, truly. The reason I get so excited about all this and start even getting shortness of breath is it's so epic. It's so historical. Do you understand we have the political information that's real? We have the enemy battle plans. They've created a completely synthetic, false cultural, economic, and political system that's designed to not work and designed to disempower people. The system we are promoting, the American system, as I keep saying, was the apple of the world's eye. I have thousands of articles I could be covering right now. But why am I going back to something I keep hammering? Because this is the central fight. We expose globalism, we expose it's unelected, we expose it's illegitimate. It's going to fall. But before it completely falls, it will try to shut us down in a desperate attempt to keep itself in power. And we're now reaching that point. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they attack you, then you win, as Mahatma Gandhi said. And regardless of what you thought about Gandhi, he was dead right when it came to that. Self-determination and the free will driving it is basically unstoppable. So we've now reached the vortex point. We've now reached the critical juncture, the point of return, where we have the President of the United States openly coming out and saying, censor the alternative media, the new media, and have propped up state-run media, and to watch the sycophantic mainstream media lapdogs perch in his lap and just sit there fawningly, loving him is the most pathetic thing in the world. And that's all the globalists have left is state-run media and control, and then, of course, staging events or hyping events to demonize their opposition. That's it. And that's why Anderson Cooper, last night, and again, there's so many of these pieces I can't even keep track of them, but what I should announce here is this. Infowars.com and Stephen Bannon of Breitbart are the most attacked, of course, along with Drudge, just perpetually, are the most attacked organizations out there. It's not Rush Limbaugh anymore. It's not any of that. And nothing against Rush, but he's talking to a very old audience and of great folks, but that's all moving on. The future, what's currently happening, the real intellectual war, where we're gaining ground is DrudgeReport.com, Infowars.com, Breitbart.com. And the direction Bannon's taken Breitbart, even more hardcore, more anti-globalist, more so than just anti-liberal, because liberalism, modern liberalism is only a small factor in that, a subset of its control arm. They're fake liberals. And it's this paradigm shift that will overthrow them. They've got to keep us in a fake, false system because that will keep people basically in a box and won't be able to get out of it. The minute you see the full system, it's game over, it's over. So again, we are on the verge of moves that will bring us to victory against this system. We'll still have problems, obviously. There's no perfect system, but true free market compared to crony capitalism, using socialism and communism as control arms, there's no comparison. So I'm going to play a clip coming up here with Cooper breathlessly 5 times in 1 minute saying, will you denounce InfoWars to one of the Trump surrogates, one of the Trump administration people. And, of course, the guy won't disavow. But I want to explain something in closing to mainstream media. I want you to listen very, very carefully because you are the fake media. You follow talking points and teleprompters. But I want you and your bosses to understand something, dumbasses. It's very clear. There was a Washington Post article about this yesterday saying that Breitbart and InfoWars could end up being Trump's biggest enemies. And it says in there, when Trump doesn't 100% deliver, which is impossible to do, that we're all going to turn on him and that they can't wait till that happens, and that they're going to prod us and manipulate us into that. Hey, guys, I could see that was your tactic months ago. I'm not stupid. As long as he tries to get things done and get some things done or dies trying, I'm going to support Trump 110% because he's not a globalist out to get the country, and nobody's perfect. And so, but you tell everybody what you're really up to in that article, which I keep telling the listeners. We brought Trump to where he is. InfoWars is the heart of the liberty, anti-globalist, populist awakening. So we don't need to be thanked or even recognized. That's all just some, issue of ego. We are the movement. You are the movement. We're winning. So if Trump was to come out and denounce us, he would be denouncing himself. He would be giving the media power. He would be letting them set the parameters and set the systems of debate. That's what they're all about. Labeling, names, political correctness, controlling paradigms. You give them that, you lose control of everything, and Trump understands that. But we're not the average little dumbed-down morons like their followers are, where you talk to us like we're 3 years old. Do you understand? We're going to continue our movement regardless of what Trump does. We're going to continue to expose how illegitimate the New World Order is. And whether Trump delivers or doesn't deliver is quite frankly a non-issue, because we're going to continue marching on. So understand that. We're sophisticated. We understood we were promoting ideas and systems well documented to work and well documented to create incredible freedom and choice. You understand? So we're promoting the Renaissance. We're promoting hardcore Americanism and nationalism, and we don't care what a bunch of globalists and corporations that have hijacked our country say or do about us, because we know it's nothing but political weapons you've got aimed at us, and it's totally cold-blooded and illegitimate. We are passionate. We do care. We do wear our emotions on our sleeves. But our analysis is cold and hard and understands who you are, and will never back down and will never stop. And once we convert somebody to take the goggles off, the blinders off, and actually see the world for themselves, there's no turning back. So that's the key to understand here, is that he's got this Trump operative on, trying to get him to denounce me and twisting things I've said in some hope to take control of the narrative and to be the guy on the high hill, dictating to everyone else down below who they can talk to, who they can be with, who can support them. They're trying to cut the anti-globalism movement out of the Trump presidency by going after Breitbart and by going after InfoWars, and it's not working. Do you understand that? Do you have that through your stupid head? We don't need to be legitimized by Trump saying we're legitimate. We don't need to be legitimized by you saying we're legitimate. When CNN says we're not legitimate, that is a giant chevron or gold star on us for everyone to see that we are legitimate. And again, it is your final arrogance, not understanding that is bringing you down. I don't like to see him so hysterical, though, and so fearful. It means he might lose his hubris, and they might come up with a new plan. Then we'll have to reassess that. But it's good to see that they're still completely arrogant. And I just hope that arrogance doesn't falter or doesn't waver, because that blindness, that hubris is absolutely essential to defeating these enemies. So let's go ahead and play this clip and then go back to the live transmission here with David Knight, Paul Watson coming up, and so much more on this live worldwide Thursday edition. But huge things are happening. We have the ideology of truth. We have the ideology of history. We have the ideology of facts. It is incontrovertible that history has shown this over and over again. All we're doing is bringing common sense and salt and light back into the world, ladies and gentlemen. And it's so simple what we're promoting. It's the winning ideology. It's the ideology that God empowered this nation to promote. It is the ideology that has given us the amazing providence that we've had, and the enemy is screaming in fear. Everything they've done is to try to dismantle this nation, bankrupt this nation, and bankrupt the engine of freedom, because they cannot compete with it. And it is so good to see them panicking and engaging in all this disinformation and only intensifying what they've done. because it is nothing but violent death throes of the most traitorous, anti-human, narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, mercenary legions of filth that have absolute bad will towards the American people and every single one of you, regardless of what color you are. So have that righteous indignation. Have that true focus, not hatred, but the cold, hard, strong will in your chest to know we're going to run these people over politically. We're going to dominate them. We're going to smash them. We're going to crush them. Nothing's going to stop us because we are standing for what's right, and God cannot be stopped when his people take action and do it in his name, Jesus Christ. But this is a huge war, and we're turning the tide, and see how far we've come. I've always known this. I've always understood this. I've always told you we're here to win. We're here to take the planet back. We're here to defeat these people. And no amount of state-run churches and propaganda is going to stop that. And that's why these cowards hate us so much, because they know we're the rightful heirs of Providence, and they can't stand it because they're a barrel of snakes. Just look at Anderson Cooper. Just look at Charlie Rose. Just look at Janet Reno. Just look at Madeleine Albright. Just look at Obama. Just look at Michael Moore. Just look at not just what they do, what they stand for. Simpering weasel-like snakes, absolute abominations and monsters and everything they're involved in, and all the horrible things they do behind the scenes. These are truly demonic people who are now falling in front of us all.
This is the man who's going to be president of the United States, going, following InfoWars, talking about which
I don't know anything.
It was an inside job.
Right. I don't know anything about InfoWars. What I do know is this. In 2014, John Fund, whom many of us know here, formerly with the Wall Street Journal and now with National Review Online, wrote an article called Non-Citizens Are Voting, in which I'll just read one sentence. In 2005, the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that up to 3% of the 30,000 people called for jury duty from voter registration rolls over a 2-year period in one of the 94 current U.S. district courts were non-citizens. And he goes on at length here with other examples. My point is, clearly, this is happening. Now, millions...
that doesn't say those people actually voted. That's just...
Well, no, but they shouldn't be on registration rolls, right?
There's dead people on registration rolls. We know registration rolls have lots of problems.
They shouldn't be there, period.
Again, there's no evidence 3 million people voted illegally.
I understand that, but the answer is we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
Clearly, we don't know.
But does it scare you that the president-elect is listening to InfoWars?
Right.
No, I think the answer, you listen to all kinds of people all over the place here. I mean, look, Ronald Reagan got pinned for, having friends who were members of the John Birch Society, for heaven's sakes.
They believe 9/11 was an inside job.
Right, of course.
They believe all that Sandy Hook, it's all crisis actors. People I've interviewed, their followers...
I am not here.
Terrorize the families of these
I am not here to vouch for InfoWars. I don't listen to InfoWars.
Right, but the president-elect seems to.
Right.
There you go. That's the kind of left, McCarthyism of the left there from Anderson Cooper. Yeah, we shouldn't question the idea that 3 buildings would fall down after 2 of them were hit by a single plane. What about that 3rd building? What about Building 7? There's an article on the Free Thought Project. Former NIST employee speaks out saying Building 7 investigation is bogus. Yeah. But that's what they keep hammering that with. They believe that the government story on 9/11 isn't true. Yeah, we don't. And, Donald Trump wasn't fooled by that either. We've played over and over again the clip as it happened. It was either the same day or the day after, and they asked him about it. He goes, that's a very strong building. And he knows as a builder we've never had before or since any skyscrapers, steel skyscrapers that just fell down in their own footprint without being demolished. He says, planes aren't going to knock those down. They were designed to withstand a plane impact after a plane hit the Empire State Building. That's part of it. You've never seen anybody sue the state of or the city of New York because they didn't inspect that building properly. Nobody ever sued the architects for that. And then you had a building that wasn't even hit by a plane that fell down. But, if you think there's something strange about that, you're kind of crazy, aren't you? And, of course, as we've seen this metastasize, as I pointed out earlier today, we now have Bloomberg joining CNN and Hillary and the DNC and Podesta. All of them are saying, the Russians are behind all this stuff. Jill Stein is saying that as well. So now Bloomberg is saying social media has been weaponized by Russia. It's always the Russians, right? Joined by another failed cybersecurity company, FireEye. But here's the scary thing. Yesterday, we had the House pass an intelligence bill that was going to thwart this imaginary Russian influence over social media and the people and push back against this idea that there's fake information being put out there by the Russians. It's being passed around by social media. You understand how this is playing out. And it was just yesterday that we saw a major economic attack on Breitbart with Kellogg pulling their sponsorship, pulling their ads from their site. And then Breitbart says, oh, we don't match your values. What are your values? And they talked about how Amnesty International has done an investigation showing that Kellogg is using child labor so that they can get palm oil to put in their sugar-loaded cereal. You know, it's not much of a hyperbole to say, just throw out the sugar, the cereal, it is sugar, throw out the cereal and eat the box. You'll be better off from a nutritional standpoint. It's not much of a hyperbole. That's why we sell the kind of products that we do here at InfoWars, to maintain our independence and also to provide you with things that are going to protect your health, not undermine it. That's what you get from the corporate junk that they're feeding you, both the junk for your body and the junk for your mind. So we try to offer you high-quality products, and we do. We have things like DNA Force that is a unique blend of ingredients. We've got BioPQQ as one of the active ingredients in this. That is something that's been backed by 175 clinical studies, very difficult to secure, very expensive to produce. But it's also there with a lot of other things like vitamin C, CoQ10, a lot of very potent antioxidants there. It's just one ingredient in DNA Force, costs us about $30,000 per batch. So it's a premium product for your health, and it's something that we put together, a unique formulation at InfoWars. Also, we have Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix. It's back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. That's an affordable, great-tasting drink mix that you can essentially take your full multivitamin regime. You can take that orally, so you don't have to swallow a lot of pills. It's got vitamin E, zinc, magnesium, selenium, L-glutamine, alpha-lipoic acid, folic acid, calcium, many other ingredients. Again, that's back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. I think it's also interesting at the Drudge Report today. Of course, the top of the Drudge Report says Megyn Kelly might jump. And unfortunately, she's not on a bridge, which many of us would kind of like to see. No, he's talking about jumping from Fox News to CNN. It's an exclusive article. Drudge Report has it. He says CNN President Jeff Zucker is actively pursuing her. An inside source said he is moving the Himalayan mountains to get her. They talk about how she's deeply despised by fellow on-air talent. And I would say by much of the Fox audience as well. He's got a poll there. I've already voted for her to go to CNN. I thought it's kind of interesting, too, on the Drudge Report, they got a black Santa Claus. Remember, it was Megyn Kelly saying that, hey, we all know that Santa Claus is white. Well, not now. We've got a black Santa Claus. I think that's kind of cool. I'd like to see kind of a Louis Armstrong Santa Claus, I think somebody that's having a lot of fun. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host. Joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio is Owen Schroyer, and he's there to cover the victory rally tonight. Now, right now, Donald Trump is in Indianapolis, Indiana, or on his way there. His first stop is going to be at the Carrier plant, where they were just able to save 1,000 jobs. And he is going to be going, though, later tonight to Cincinnati, Ohio, where our reporters are. We're going to have an update on that tonight on the Nightly News. But right now, let's go to Owen Schroyer in Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome, Owen.
Well, that's right, David. We heard that commercial during the break of Obama saying, how is Trump going to bring jobs back? What is he going to wave a magic wand? Well, I guess Trump has a magic wand then, because he's bringing jobs back. So how about that for Barack Obama? Trump has a magic wand.
Yeah. Of course, Barack Obama never did anything to save a single job in his entire time there. Some of the people who were on the free market side said, well, look, there were some incentives. Now we learned about $7 million worth of incentives given to Carrier. That's over a 10-year period. So if you divide that out by 1,000 jobs, it's about $7,000 per job over a 10-year period. So it's about $700 a year. But they also are Carrier is going to make a $16 million investment. So they're investing more than twice as much as they're getting back in a subsidy. And for those 1,000 people, that is making a huge difference. What we've seen from Obama is essentially threatening to bankrupt entire industries, and doing so, taking over our healthcare system, turning it into a major tax and a mandate, and doubling the price of healthcare. More than that for a lot of people. It's tripled or quadrupled for many people, but we're seeing massive increases in the price of healthcare. That's his singular accomplishment that he created with his executive order, but he never did anything to save anybody's jobs.
Well, he might have saved some jobs for some big bankers who had to get bailed out. But nonetheless, Trump hasn't even become president yet, and it's perfectly fair to say that he's done more for the average American worker than President Obama did in 8 years as president, and Trump hasn't even become the president yet. Now, we are here in Cincinnati. As you said, David, Trump is going to start what is being dubbed his victory tour here tonight in Cincinnati. It's going to be held at the U.S. Bank Arena, which is right behind me. We are actually, it's pretty much in the heart of downtown, right here by the Riverside, next to the Great American Baseball Field, and then the football field right down the street as well. And there's already some patrons out here, not too much foot traffic yet. The rally is not till tonight. But if I can get my cameraman to look down here, you'll actually see that there's some nice capitalists. We've got some American capitalists out here, some vendors. They're selling some Trump gear, Trump hats, scarves, T-shirts, hoodies, bags, mugs, pins. They got it all ready to go. And it'll be interesting for me, David, to see, you know, Donald Trump had probably one of the biggest presidential election campaigns ever as far as rally turnout was concerned, as far as, you know, getting people involved, getting people to show up, how many rallies he held. So now he's continuing that momentum. He's going to keep these rallies going. It'll be interesting to see if he still gets the type of turnout that we saw during the campaign rallies as he might get with these victory rallies. So it'll be interesting to see what the turnout is like. But the vendors here are expecting people to show up. We do know that there's going to be protests going on as well. We've got our pulse on that. So we'll keep up with the number of people that show up as well as the protests that are going to be developing here tonight.
You know, it's very interesting you're talking about in terms of whether or not he's going to have the crowd there. And that's, I think, a key thing, because what Trump did during the campaign was very different. We've never seen a candidate pull the kinds of crowds that he's done, have that many rallies, as you point out. But we've also never seen a candidate immediately after the election go back to the people. And I think, Owen, that is a real key point. If he can work with the people, they can together, the people and Trump can transcend the people who oppose him that are part of the GOP as well as the Democrat establishment. It's not just the Democrats who are opposing him. It's the people at the top and the GOP. So he can go over their heads. He can go to the people. As we pointed out, that was something that Reagan promised to do. But I think this is a very important thing that he's doing this, to see him deliver on the promises that he's made in the past, and to see even his picks that have come out, say, as we saw with the Treasury Secretary pick yesterday, Mnuchin, saying and reiterating step by step, point by point, what he was going to do with the economy. If Trump can stay on target with this, if he can fulfill these promises, it's going to be a really big win for all of us, I think. And it's essential, because if we don't get that, if the people feel like they've been betrayed again, like we've been betrayed over and over by the GOP establishment, by Paul Ryan, by Mitch McConnell, they would campaign to say they're going to get rid of Obamacare, then not do it. If that's the sort of thing that happens, I think we're going to see a massive lurch back to the left, which would be a really bad thing for us in 4 years. So we hope that that Trump is going to do this. I've never seen anybody move this quickly, even before taking office. We're still 50 days out.
Well, and I know that you might be fundamentally disagreeing with this, because that's not the role the president is supposed to play, but Donald Trump might be the first hands-on president. I mean, are we looking at a guy who, instead of sitting in his ivory tower all day long, flying around the world on Air Force One, visiting all these leaders around the world, are we looking at a president who's going to be hands-on, visiting the inner cities of America, going to city to figure out what is wrong with the city, what the people want to hear, what the people want to see, what the people want to happen? I know that, like I said, I think fundamentally you are more like a president, leave me alone, stay out of my business, you know, just sit at the White House all day and play tiddlywinks. I'll worry about my life. But it would be diametrically opposed to what we've seen in the very recent past, specifically with Obama, but any president. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a president, like you said, to immediately start doing essentially rallies again after he won. But then let's say he does this even after he's elected. Let's say he continues to go city to city to speak to the people, see what's going on in these cities, figure out what he can do to help, figure out what he can do to help local business owners, figure out what he can do to help local builders, figure out what he can do with some of these cities that have all these abandoned buildings. He can go see it firsthand. He can walk on the streets, put on the hard hat, engage with these people. That's something we've never seen before. I would love to see Donald Trump be that president. I think that.
Well, yeah, when I say that I want him to leave us alone, I don't mean that he doesn't need to get involved, that he shouldn't use a bully pulpit to do that. And I think if he used a bully pulpit to nudge Carrier along and to tell them, hey, I'm going to create a great environment here in America, you want to be a part of that, you've got a positive role to play here by selling yourself as a U.S. Company. But thank you, Owen. We're going to be looking for what happens tonight on the Nightly News. And again, this is Owen Shore. He's in Cincinnati, Ohio. They're going to be covering the first victory tour as Donald Trump goes to supporters in Cincinnati, Ohio tonight. Right now, we've got Alex Jones on the line. He's calling in. He's not in the studio today, but let's go to Alex Jones right now. Alex.
That's right, from an undisclosed location, my friend working on some very important information. But bottom line, I'll have more reports to integrate in with you tomorrow and more. The reason I had to call in is I just heard that Darren McBreen promo piece, that 1 minute deal he did. We've got to really build on that. It just hit me. What are the new intro videos? What's the new theme about how we're defeating globalism? Well, it's always whatever the truth is. And the truth is, he's delivered on getting Ford to stay in the U.S. He's delivered on Apple now saying they're looking at coming back. Carrier, and it's called the Trump effect. There's an article on Infowars.com today. Hundreds of companies now saying they're planning to stay as well. Now it's okay. It's cool to stay in America. Now Americans will buy American. This is going to do a lot of stuff, but it gets worse than that. Then, the Communist Chinese, People's Daily came out today. The article's on Infowars.com. And they said, you will, quote, never regain your greatness. They actually said, you will never regain your greatness, like a bad character from a comic book. You will never regain your greatness. We have taken it all. Nothing will be there. And these will not be like the jobs you had before. You are done. We dominate rare earth minerals. We have control of everything. There is nothing you can, page after page, there is nothing you can do. So, but then they have top diplomats saying, actually, that's China super scared because they realize how they bought off our politicians and gave them control of the factories. A lot of these globalists make billions every few years off these per person. So, see, the globalists sold us out. It was so easy to do. That's why Trump knows it's so easy to bring it back if we back him and protect him. And if he just delivers on the economics, if he just delivers on that front, it is total game over. So I want Big Green to take that clip where Obama's going, you can't bring him back. How you going to bring him back? Those jobs ain't coming back. I'm a community organizer for the worst day of my life. How you going to do anything? You can't do anything. With all the, laughing, just like the Communist Chinese. They're not laughing now, just like with Brexit, just like with everything else we're doing. We're bringing it home, fair deals. You name it, it'll build up the entire world. Globalism sucks the world down. Globalism expands the world. Globalism empowers. No, that's not what it does. Globalism absolutely enslaves. So they told us over and over again that globalism was the answer, that globalism would make us all rich. No. Nationalism is what rises up the world. And then globally, not through command and control, but through individual action, empowers populations. That's called Renaissance that I keep hyping. So, folks, we're here. It's unfolding. It's an exciting time to be alive. And the only problem that Green's report is he didn't mention what's happening with Ford and others. This is an incredible time to be alive. You're doing a great job, David. And it's so good to be able to sit here and listen to you guys absolutely kick butt. So to the listeners and the affiliates and the sponsors and the great crew and everybody, we're making history together. This is really amazing, and it's only getting better. There will be wild cards. The enemy will shoot torpedoes at us. This is an amazing time to be alive. But I'm telling you, I hope for the Nightly News or for the rest of the show today, somebody goes and finds the article on Infowars. I'm out in front of the computer that quotes the Communist Chinese, or just Google Chinese paper, state-run, says you will never regain your greatness. See, globalism was supposed to make us great, but it didn't. It was the giant sucking sound that we were warned of. Look, I'm going to let you guys go. Sorry about the audio quality. You're awesome. Love you all. Keep it up. Let's only intensify efforts because this is an exciting time to be alive.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, and of course, China is getting on their full Dr. Evil. I wonder if they put the little pinky on the corner of their mouth when they said, you will never regain your greatness. But, one of the things that we need to understand, I'm going to play this Darren McBreen piece again, where we've got the flashback to Obama planning to, saying that Trump can't keep the carrier in the United States. Well, he just did. And you know what? He's not even president. Obama, you are president. You could have done what Donald Trump just did, but you did you? You're still in office. What are you doing in your final days? You're pushing through massive regulations that are going to cost billions of dollars if you get them through, and a lot of jobs if you can get them through. So what is Obama doing in his final days? He's trying to put as many chains on the American economy as many chains on the American worker and businesses as he possibly can to go out. And I hope that Donald Trump comes in with his pen and just says void, 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 void on all these regulations, because he has the power to do that. He could do that with Obamacare, and I hope he does that as well. But let's go back to this flashback with Obama mocking Donald Trump, saying, you can't save jobs. And remember, it's Obama who hasn't lifted a finger, even though he is still president, and Trump is still 50 days out. So here's that flashback of Obama.
Well, Barack Obama is looking pretty stupid right now as a video has surfaced where he is seen making fun of Donald Trump for promising to stop jobs leaving the country.
He's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it. He just says, well, I'm going to negotiate a better deal. Well, how exactly are you going to negotiate that? What magic wand do you have? And usually the answer is he doesn't have an answer.
Well, Obama, President-elect Trump has yet to begin his presidency, and he is already saving jobs in America. And he has successfully negotiated a deal with air conditioner company Carrier to keep 1,000 jobs in the U.S. No magic wand, just good negotiating skills and a passion to put America first and save the working class hero. I'm Darren McBreen, and you can learn more right now at Infowars.com.
Again, that breaks it down perfectly. Thank you, Darren. And of course, think about what we would be seeing right now if Hillary had won the election. What would she be doing? Well, she would be going around raising money and with parties of the wealthy in the Northeast. She'd be traveling to see foreign governments who are going to make connections and contributions to the Clinton Foundation. She'd be basking in the glory of the media, seeing all the rock stars, and everybody would be writing all of these fawning pieces about the first woman president. So she'd be patting herself on the back instead of drowning herself in her sorrows, as reportedly an insider is saying. And we got an article from Kit Daniels talking about how she's kind of in the bottle a lot lately. It's right there. Trying to drown her sorrows, lift her spirits by consuming a good number of spirits. Well, it's not just Obama that was saying Donald Trump can't save jobs. And he never tried, of course. Obama never even tried to save a single job. So he wouldn't know about that. He's never run a company. He's never actually created a job. And he's never saved any jobs. Remember when they said how many jobs that they had saved? And it's like, well, I don't think you saved any jobs. And certainly he didn't save anybody's jobs at Carrier when he could. He didn't wave his magic wand, but Donald Trump did wave his magic wand. But I want to take a look at Chuck Schumer. Chucky Schumer and Harry Reid were talking about how they think they can successfully block some of the nominations of Donald Trump. And I want to play you that clip, and then we're going to tell you why they can't. You don't have that clip? Okay. Let's go to that clip in just a moment. One of the things that they're pushing back, and you're going to see this in this clip when these guys get it, is the fact that, okay, you got that clip? Okay, let's play the clip first.
And there ought to be bipartisan support against a secretary who's going to privatize Medicare and not fund Planned Parenthood.
Not fund Planned Parenthood.
Are you saying you think there's any conceivable way you guys could block the first nomination?
I think it's possible. You'll have to ask a number of...
He can't get back to the microphone because they really took it over.
But on privatization of Medicare, that go... Sorry. On privatization of Medicare, that goes way beyond where mainstream Republicans are.
Okay, what you're seeing there, and that was a great visual as well, if you're watching that, because they really are so disoriented and in such disarray, they can't even decide who's going to be talking. Harry Reid, who is long past his sell-by date, took the microphone there as they were still asking questions of Chucky Schumer, and Chuck Schumer is trying to get from one side to the other, and Harry Reid just continues to stand there. But what Chucky Schumer had said before Harry Reid took the podium away from him, for the longest time, he had talked, before that, he had gone on for several minutes talking about Medicare and Medicaid and saying, we're going to block this guy that Donald Trump has selected for HHS, Tom Price, because we think he's going to change Medicare and Medicaid. Well, think about that for a moment, and think about that in terms of Obamacare. I think we have an opportunity here with Obamacare. If they don't move quickly on this to shut it down, it will never happen. And, of course, the Democrats, through outlets like Politico are saying that we want to work with the Republicans to make sure that even though they may pass a resolution to eventually get rid of Obamacare, that doesn't really happen for 3 years. And I have to say, if Donald Trump falls for that, and I don't think he will, I don't think his administration will fall for that. But if they do something in terms of passing a goodwill resolution, say we're going to get rid of it in 3 years, and don't get rid of it right away, don't repeal it right away, it'll never happen. It'll be just like the Department of Education that Ronald Reagan said he was going to campaign on, that he was elected to get rid of. It was something that had just been created by Jimmy Carter. And instead of doing that, he kept feeding it. And if you allow Obamacare to stay for another 3 years, and this is the reason they want to delay it, it's going to get so entrenched in the minds of the people that they will think, you can't touch this, just like Medicare or Medicaid. They don't want to see any improvement to Medicare or Medicaid. It's just got to stay the way that it is because they can't remember there was a time when it wasn't there. You know what? I'm an aspiring senior citizen. I hope someday to live long enough to be one. I want to have some choices in my health care. I want to see an improvement in it. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I've got one more segment with you. I'm David Knight, and then after that, we're going to be joined in the fourth hour by John Rappaport. Of course, his website is nomorefakenews.com. That's not something new that he created. John Rappaport had that site a long time ago because he knew, and he was telling everybody, and we've been telling everybody, the real fake news is CNN. But now they have adopted that. Maybe John ought to sue them for infringement, trade rights or copyright or whatever, because they've taken his fake news moniker, and now they're trying to throw that on everybody else. But it's not just that. We're now seeing economic boycotts by sponsors. We've seen that yesterday. Breitbart was boycotted by Kellogg. They said they've decided to end their relationship with Breitbart. They're going to pull their paid ads from Breitbart. They said because Breitbart doesn't align with their company values. And so Breitbart said, well, what are your company values? Oh, that's right. Amnesty International says you support child labor sweatshops abroad so that you can get palm oil to put in your sugar-laden cereal. So they created a hashtag, Dump Kellogg's, and that became the #1 trend on Twitter. So we'll see how that shapes up. But that's, as I've been saying throughout this broadcast, that's the reason we fund our operation the way that we do, and we appreciate your support. We try to offer you healthy things for your body, not Kellogg's cereal, things to help you get over that if you actually do eat that. And we've got some of those products now. I'll just remind you that we've gotten Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. That is a full month's supply of essential multivitamins and minerals and amino acids that your body needs. And again, that is back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com. You can see the full list of nutrients there that we proudly display on our site, as well as we have DNA Force, which I would recommend to you, a unique product. BioPQQ, very difficult to secure, very expensive to secure. 175 clinical studies back up how important that is and how beneficial that is for your health. Again, we appreciate your support. That's what allows us to continue, and that is the way, and I think it's very wise that Alex did this to keep us from being susceptible to individual companies pulling their advertising from us as we see the escalation of the media wars that began during the Trump campaign. It's been going on for quite some time, but of course it really came to a head with the Trump campaign, and now it's going on full tilt. So we appreciate your support, and look for those fine products at InfoWarsLife.com. Now, as I was showing that clip before we went to the break of Chuck Schumer saying we're going to try to block Tom Price, Donald Trump's pick for Health and Human Services, because we think he's going to make some changes to Medicare and Medicaid. You see, they've had this as a weapon that they scare people with. They always say, you know what, these people are going to change Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid. You know, I would like to see those programs changed for the better, just to say that I would have some more choice, some more control. As I said before we went to the break, I'm an aspiring senior citizen. I think everybody is. The only way to not become a senior citizen is to die young. So we don't want to do that. But when I'm also somebody who would like to have more control over my life, as opposed to being treated like a child on an allowance. And I'm also not wedded to a government program that continues to not serve the needs of the people. So why can't we look at some changes? And that's why I said it's very important for Trump to repeal Obamacare and to replace it with a marketplace, as he has talked about through the entire campaign. The second thing I think he put on his site was getting rid of Obamacare and what he would replace it with. He would replace it with a competitive marketplace where insurance companies could compete across state lines. So you're not allowed to have any competition in America on health insurance. And this is put in by the same people who say we have to have open borders for trade. They stop the trade within our borders. That's the kind of protectionism that Obamacare truly represents. That's why you're seeing the skyrocketing insurance. So we can do that. And you know the reason you can do it is because Harry Reid changed the rules to where they only need 51 votes to get in Trump's cabinet picks. That was Harry Reid, so he's blocking Chucky Schumer just like he physically blocked him at that press conference. We'll be right back. John Rappaport in the next hour. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. In the next segment, we're going to be joined by John Rappaport, NoMoreFakeNews.com. I have a couple of articles that I've been wanting to get through this entire show that I think are very important to see. This one is from the Free Thought Project, and we just got a press release from Julian Assange. And, of course, WikiLeaks had a very important role to play in terms of educating the public, in terms of putting information out there so we could see the criminal actions of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation in the background, so we could see what they were doing, conspiring together with the media to lie to the American public, to tell us that they're having debates when they're feeding questions for town halls to Hillary Clinton, that sort of thing. So they played a very important role. We've been very concerned because his internet was cut off. We haven't seen much in terms of interviews from him. There's been one interview. Some people have been concerned about the quality of that. So the questions for Julian Assange's safety that people have had, there's now been a press release from WikiLeaks. And what they're saying is that there's been another appeal to set him free to the United Nations. And this is the press release. They said earlier this year, the United Nations concluded the 16-month-long case into which the United Kingdom was a party. The UK lost, appealed, and today lost again. The UN instructed the UK and Sweden to take immediate steps to ensure Mr. Assange's liberty, protection, and enjoyment of fundamental human rights. No steps have been taken, jeopardizing Mr. Assange's life, health, and physical integrity, and undermining the UN system of human rights protection. So this is interesting because they say now all these appeals have been exhausted to the UN, and they're trying to put pressure on the UK to release him. This is going back to February. They said the UN's Working Group on Arbitrary Detention is the one that is driving this. So hopefully there's going to be some developments there. And that is kind of a good sign, because if they're pushing on that and saying they expect him to be released, that is a good sign that he is still there, even though the terms of his imprisonment there, his imprisonment without being found guilty, have worsened since he released this information educating the public on Hillary Clinton and the political process here. Another report that has come out, another example of how important it is for people to get educated. This is a former NIST employee speaking out about Building 7. Now, this is a guy that worked as a scientist for NIST for 15 years. And he said he never read the World Trade Center Building 7. That's the third building that fell down that wasn't hit by any planes. He said he read that report for the first time in August of 2016, August of this year. 15 years after the fact, he had not read it. See, that's why it's important to have media that is not part of the mainstream media. You just saw earlier in the program, Anderson Cooper mocking InfoWars, mocking Alex Jones, saying, these are people who don't believe the government's official story. It's like, that's right. Didn't believe it day one. Donald Trump didn't believe it day one. Still don't believe it. And there's a lot of people out here, even people like this educated scientist who worked for 15 years for NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They're the ones that most of these people who say, oh, you guys are just a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists, they go back to NIST and they say, see, NIST said there's nothing to see. It's just natural that a steel building would fall down when it catches on fire, even though that has never happened before or since. And this building was not hit by a plane. That's why I've talked to the United Kingdom documentarian Tony Rook. He has interviewed people there. There's one UK fireman who went to bat for this in the UK. Okay, they're not trying to repeal the Patriot Act there, but he knows that this matters. He's a fireman, and he says, wait, if this story is true, if a steel building like this can just fall down. You need to change the standards for construction. You need to give different rules and regulations to the firemen. We're still doing it the same way we always did, assuming that this wouldn't happen. So why haven't you changed the rules for architectural standards? Why haven't you changed the rules for firemen? And that's what this NIST scientist is pointing out as well. See, the truth is going to eventually come out. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Jon Rappoport. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and our fourth hour is going to be hosted by Jon Rappoport. Of course, Jon Rappoport is no stranger to the InfoWars audience. He writes frequent articles for Infowars.com. He's worked as a freelance investigative reporter for over 30 years. He points out in his bio here since 2000, he's operated largely away from the mainstream because, as he puts it, my research is not friendly to conventional media. And, you know, conventional media has not been friendly to him either, or to us. But the truth will come out. Just as I said in the last segment, as I was talking about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, their contribution to this last election. And now even a former NIST employee is speaking out against the baloney science that has been pushed by that organization for the last 15 years. He said, hey, I just looked at this stuff in August, and this is nonsense. This isn't up to our scientific standards. So Jon Rappoport is joining us now, and I'm going to get out of the way and let him host. His website is No More Fake News. Boy, Jon, that was really prophetic. You thought of this long before they started this fake meme of fake news, didn't you? That's a gold website.
I was thinking of suing them.
That's right. You could probably take this and sell it to the Pentagon now for millions of dollars. You know, they could make it their central site to push their fake news memes.
I'm sure we could. Yeah, we'll have to see about that.
All right, I'm going to get out of the way and let you host. Thank you so much, Jon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good to be here, everybody. Anderson Cooper, my hero, Mr. Fake News personified. Isn't he a great guy? Incredible. Interned for 2 summers with the CIA before he ever got started in the news business. 2 summers, not 1. Went through 1, said, I like it. Went back, I like it again. But I guess I won't go in for a career with the CIA. But the news, mainstream news, last I heard, that was a kind of a CIA operation, isn't it? Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird, and so on and so forth. So when Anderson Cooper stands up and says to a Trump team member, you mean it's possible that Donald Trump goes to InfoWars for his news? This is a terrible thing. This is a terrible thing. What is Mr. Fake News Anderson Cooper actually doing? Well, what he's actually doing is he's trying to defend big news. He's just saying, don't go there. Stay here with us. We own the news. Don't go anywhere else. We have the news. You might recall, who was that idiot on CNN not long ago who was saying, you, the public, do not have a right to read the WikiLeaks emails about Hillary Clinton because that would be illegal. No. Instead, you've got to let us read them, and then we will tell you what they say, and then you will know what we know as we want to give it to you. Remember that? Remember that incredible statement that should have turned off, I don't know, whatever audience CNN has left? An incredible statement. So this is the kind of news outlet that Mr. Fake News Anderson Cooper is defending. This is CNN. This is CNN. Don't go to InfoWars. Don't go to anywhere else. Just stay with CNN. You know, he's doing advertising for CNN, basically. It has nothing to do with anything else, except, of course, when he refers to Trump and he says, you mean there's a possibility that the next president of the United States does not accept the conventional official scenario about the 9/11 attacks? My God, what a horror show that would be. And why would Mr. Fake News Anderson Cooper say that? Because he doesn't know the first thing about anything. All he knows is the official scenario. That's all he's supposed to know. That's all he's supposed to talk about. So that is what he talks about, and defends that against any incursion from the outside. What about Building 7, as David was just talking about? What about bombs inside the buildings exploding simultaneously with the impact? What about a dozen other scenarios that have been researched by people who are not only of goodwill, but are hell-bent on discovering the truth? What about them? Oh, that's all fake news. And why is that, Anderson? Well, because it's not CNN. That's why. And then, of course, we have the case of Newsweek sending out, what was it, 120,000 issues of Madame President, the so-called commemorative issue on election night, and now revealing and confessing that they didn't even write it. They didn't read it. They didn't edit it. They didn't look at it. Matt Cooper, the editor, was talking with Tucker Carlson about this. Oh, yeah, well, you know, we subcontract that kind of thing out to a private company, and usually they do a very good job. But I have to admit, in this case, the writing was really subpar. Yes, because the writing basically glorified Hillary Clinton and roundly denounced Donald Trump as the Dark Prince. That was the commemorative issue that went out. Oh, we made a mistake. It went out before the election was called, yes. So that was another mistake. We sent it out. That was one. We didn't read it, number two. We didn't edit it, number three. And we didn't write it, number four. We actually had a private company do it for us, and they sent it out. That's a pretty good deal. You run a news outlet that isn't a news outlet. You pay somebody else to write the news. You don't read it or you edit it or edit it. You just send it out. That's kind of a nice job if you can get it. So with that, let me suddenly segue over and let you know that Vitamin Mineral Fusion, an InfoWarsLife.com product, is back. It's affordable. It's there in the stores at InfoWarsLife.com. Full month supply of essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids that your body does need, unique delivery system, proprietary manufacturing process, platinum standard of multivitamin products. So go to InfoWarsLife.com for Vitamin Mineral Fusion. This product, either plant-derived or of the highest lab standard. Just some of the ingredients, vitamin C, E, zinc, magnesium, selenium, L-glutamine, alpha-lipoic acid, folic acid, Vitamin Mineral Fusion, InfoWarsLife.com. And as David mentioned in the last hour, InfoWars does not accept government funding. It is not PBS. It is not running Kellogg's ads all over the place. It is not doing any of that. It's offering you pure products for your health. And that way, you get a double. You get health, better health, and you support InfoWars. So do it. Go to InfoWarsLife.com. Now, as I was saying, Anderson Cooper, Mr. Fake News, 2 summers with the CIA as an intern. But this isn't all that's happening at CNN. And here's something that I think it's quite possible that you haven't heard of, just looking through my notes here, and that is the case of David Gergen. You know David Gergen? I call him David Gargle, because he always sounds like he's gargling when he's talking. David Gergen. David Gergen is an insider, a real political insider who's worked on the inside with 4 presidents, Ford, Nixon, Reagan, Clinton, both sides of the aisle. He is now an elite CNN commentator. There he is. Hi, David. Don't gurgle while I'm talking, please. But David is also an executive committee member of the Trilateral Commission. Okay? He hammered Trump during the campaign. What do those two things have to do with each other? Well, the Trilateral Commission is David Rockefeller, is Zbigniew Brzezinski, is globalism personified. There are 87 members of the Trilateral Commission who live in America, as author Patrick Wood has pointed out. Obama appointed 11 of the 87 to key posts in his administration. David Gergen is supposedly an objective commentator for CNN, Fake News Central, and he has been a longtime member of the Executive Committee of the Trilateral Commission, which stands for all the trade treaties, oh indeed, that are sending jobs like crazy out of the country and throwing people out of work. He stands for a new economic order of the planet, which is the stated aim of the Trilateral Commission. They want to eradicate all borders and national sovereignty, as evidenced by David Rockefeller's own statements in his 2003 memoir. That's who David Gergen is. So why doesn't he file and announce a conflict of interest statement every time he opens his yap and gargles on CNN? Especially when he's talking about globalism or trade treaties or Donald Trump or immigration or open borders. Why doesn't he do that? Why doesn't CNN do that? Why don't they say, here's David Gergen? You didn't know this, but he's an executive committee member of the Trilateral Commission. And so he has certain views, which we will now announce to you before he opens his yap. We'll be back. Think about it. Info. This is John Rappaport sitting in for Alex Jones in the fourth hour here. And we're talking about fake news and the fake news people of CNN. But I want to shift gears into some solutions here. I've been writing open letters to Steve Bannon, suggesting some solutions. Remember the idea of solutions, actual things that actually work, as opposed to what government bureaucrats do? Because let's face it, what they do is they take a problem and they grab it like it's their soulmate. We got to have it. We can't let go of it. We can't solve it. We can't really do anything about it. We can mush it around. We can love it. And we can keep it. We can fund it unworkably so that everything gets screwed up. But we never, ever solve it. That's the bureaucratic look here. So if Trump is going to change that, if that's really going to happen, and I have some serious questions about some of his appointments so far, so I'm not floating in the clouds here. But if this administration is going to go for solutions, Steve Bannon is one of the guys to talk to because he understands something about major media. He understands it's a bubble. He understands they're all talking to each other and they reflect the bureaucracy in the government and they take dictation from government PR people. And he does think outside the box. So I want to drum up some support for some of these things because they would revolutionize the country. These are not my original ideas that I cooked up out of nowhere. They're there. They're happening to some degree. For example, and I've talked to Alex about this before, urban farms. Go to a search engine and type in urban farms Chicago. And one of the things that's going to come up is actually a directory of urban farms, not just one. These are in the city of Chicago, some in inner cities where people are growing their own clean, nutritious food. Yeah, there it is. Their own clean, nutritious, free food, trading food. This can be turned into a business, profitable food as well, selling off the excess. Why not? Bringing life back to inner cities, giving people a stake in their own survival and safe communities, escalating their demand to be free of drugs and thugs and bullets, because our community is doing something. We are producing clean, great, nutritious food. We're eating it. We're selling it. We're alive. What would it take for the federal government to do a loan program? We're talking about a minuscule amount of the money that's been poured down the rat hole of the war on poverty since 1966. A tiny amount. And you could have 5,000 of these urban farms in inner cities across America. Think of that. Think of that kind of revolution, what that would do. Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, go outside the box, revolutionize the failure of the bureaucracy of government as it becomes more and more of a fungus and invades our lives more and more. Turn it all around. Go be around that bureaucracy and go direct to the people in the inner cities that already know how to do this. We're not talking about bureaucrats coming in and saying, well, we're going to grow an urban farm. No. Not those idiots. The people who live in the inner cities. And leaders who already live there who know how to do urban farming. They exist. They're the ones that should be getting the funding, the loans directly to expand their operations, teach other people how to do this. And I guarantee you, Steve, Donald, that within months, you would see a revolution happening in America. A revolution from the bottom up in America. That's what you would get. That's what we're talking about here. Solutions that go beyond. Yeah, that's not great. Look at that on your screen right now. If you're watching, people growing their own food. It's alive. It makes you healthy. It's not Kellogg's. It's real. Yes, indeed. Think about these things, Steve. Think about the solutions that work, that make people more powerful in their own communities. John Rappaport sitting in for Alex Jones on InfoWars. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. This is John Rappaport sitting in for Alex in the fourth hour here. We're talking about solutions for the Trump administration. Because, why not? Because we've gotten the message that this is supposed to be different. This is not the old story of globalism. This is not the United States as some kind of a subunit in the greater glob whole of the world globalist program to basically put everybody into a condition of hypnosis. No, this is supposed to be different. Okay, well, let's assume it is. Let's assume that maybe somewhere in there, Trump, Steve Bannon, others, they actually want to do something to change things. They're interested in actual solutions, no matter who that offends, because believe me, when you start talking solutions, as I've learned from over 30 years writing as a reporter, you start offending lots of people. Strange, isn't it? I mean, why not? Because they don't want solutions. Because solutions make them feel too good. That's really what's going on. Makes them feel too good. Makes them have hope again. Makes them think that we can get around the reality machine that keeps on producing lies, defeat, loss, failure, and actually achieve something. And they don't want to feel that way. They don't want to think that way. They just want to rest in the swamp along with the other creatures of the night. That's what they want to do. And bureaucrats are famous for this. Government people are famous for this. Solution? Oh, man, that's like a silver bullet to a vampire. Something that actually works? No. For example, we have a water shortage in California, many other places around the globe, a severe drought. No matter what's causing it, and I understand there are many explanations for what's behind it. What about solving it? What about actually solving it? What about a guy named Manoj Bhargava, who puts out 5-hour energy and has many inventions that his teams of technicians around the world are working on as we speak, including making it rain, so to speak? Well, basically what he's talking about are machines that desalinate water to various degrees of purity, including complete distillation. A barge, for example. You see that big barge, those of you who are watching, carrying huge tanks. Each one of these tanks may be the size of a flatbed truck, and the water is purified or desalinated from seawater at sea. And then it can be brought to land. It can be pumped into California. It can be sold to farmers who are going out of business like crazy because their profit margins already are small and they can't get enough water. Why hasn't California thought of this? What about Governor Moonbeam, Jerry Brown? Why hasn't he considered any of this? Why hasn't the California bureaucracy considered any of this? Well, we don't care. What about solving this, President-elect Steve? What about getting busy and talking to this guy? You can check his system out. It's all there. If it works, it works. If it works, you can put Menage together with California farmers and actually give them water. What an idea. What an idea. Give them water. Incredible. That's called an answer. But of course, you see, let's just keep this in mind. The people who are in charge of the fraudulent climate change science that say, you know, we were all going to be dead by now, but now they've moved it up to whatever it is, 2040, 2050, all this fraudulent science, they are relying on droughts and water shortages to say, you see, this is all caused by man-made global warming. They want to shove that in our faces and say, this is proof that the planet is going to hell unless we save it by cutting back on everybody's energy consumption. That's their game. That's what they're doing. That's why they want these droughts and water shortages to persist. We, on the other hand, can demand solutions. That's what we want, Mr. Trump. Solutions that actually work. Bypass the morons and the criminals in the system that refuse to make things work and solve the water shortage. Another product from InfoWarsLife.com. You heard Alex talking about it a few minutes ago. I just want to reinforce it because it's called DNA Force. The benefits of the most advanced formula that InfoWars has ever produced. BioPQQ. That's the patented compound, backed up by 175 clinical studies. The product, that ingredient in particular, extremely hard to secure. So get it while it is there. Just one of the 9 powerful ingredients in DNA Force, including CoQ10 and digestive enzymes. There's a reason why just one ingredient in DNA Force costs about $30,000 per batch to produce, because the product is complex and hard to produce. So when InfoWars runs out, they're going to be out of stock for a while. So go to InfoWarsLife.com and check out and order DNA Force. InfoWarsLife.com. Keep in mind that your support through these products, which benefit you, make InfoWars.com possible. Solutions, many solutions here. Let's think about, for example, the Trump Web Network. That's what I would call it. He's already started to do this. In one of my open letters to Steve Bannon, I said, look, Trump has to go direct to the people. With live stream, actually, is the way he should be doing this. On the web. Forget the major media. Doesn't have to do press conferences with these idiots who are the purveyors and originators of fake news par excellence. Deny them press passes or just ignore them completely. Sitting in the Trump Tower, sitting in the White House, talk directly to the people through live streaming video on the web. He's already put up a couple of YouTube videos, which is a step in the right direction. But the basic idea here is that this in itself is a solution, because if he is what he says he is, a real populist in the sense of raising people up, giving the people who put him in office what they truly want, if this is the agenda and not some of these very questionable appointments he's been making, then he should be going directly to the people often and at length to tell them what he is doing to bring these wishes into being, these solutions into being, and what resistance he is encountering on a daily basis, naming names. This is the way you do it in the era of the new media. This is how you keep the people informed. Who cares how many press conferences a president has? He doesn't have to inform the people that way. So get busy, Bannon, and put up the Trump Web Network where the people are going to be able to hear and respond to what the elect president is going to tell them about what he is doing to bring his authentic, non-globalist program into being. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to find out about now. And here's another solution, Mr. Bannon. I've talked about this for some years, written about it. It has to do with people who were and still are in the movement called health freedom. This is no tiny proportion of the population, Mr. Bannon, I assure you. There are millions and millions of people out there who got up on their hind legs in the early 1990s when the FDA was threatening to take away their nutritional supplements, and when the FDA was raiding alternative practitioners' offices like Dr. Jonathan Wright in the state of Washington. And they wrote, this was not email era, they wrote actual letters to Congress demanding their health freedom, which is the right to manage their own health and their own bodies. Millions of letters to Congress, more than Congress had ever received on any issue in its history. And those people are still there, Mr. Bannon. They're still there. Some of them voted for your guy. Some of them didn't. Some of them didn't vote at all. But they're still there. And they are, believe me, a potent force for change in the right direction. So here's a solution. Think about it. Encourage, wangle, wheedle, whatever you have to do to find one state in the union that will pass a law that says that any health practitioner of any stripe can practice in that state, as long as he or she does not use a remedy for a condition that is more toxic than the standard medical remedy for that condition. That's the only rule. Otherwise, you're talking about informed consent between adults, patient and practitioner. Any kind of health practice at all. Think about that. Do you have any inkling about what that could do to the economy of that state? Pick a state, South Carolina, Florida, whatever. You would have huge numbers of people, both practitioners, clients, patients, migrating to that state with money, ready to spend it, ready to put it in circulation, because these people want their health freedom and they believe they have the right, and they do, as do we all, to manage their own health in any way that they want to. That state would undergo an incredible economic boom overnight. And other states looking at that would see it, and they would follow suit as well. And in that way, you would crack the pharmaceutical medical monopoly in this country and put the economy up onto an even higher level than it was before. And if the president-elect managed to pull that one off as a solution, just as a side effect, he would have millions more people supporting him. Millions more that are now, most of them, nowhere to be seen. They would come out of the woodwork. So that's another answer, another solution. You see what we're talking about here? It's the people who recognize that there are ways of, God forbid, solving problems, making things better. Not the fake change, not the fake hope, not the fake globalist shimmy-shammy, shuck and jive con game, but the real thing. The real thing. When you put in a real solution and you solve a real problem that has been affecting and infecting a sector of the society, not only do you solve the problem, but people start to wake up to the possibility of real solutions, which they've lost track of because government has not been doling those out. Just the opposite. Government, as we all know, has been peddling dependence as the highest possible value. Your life as an individual has no meaning. You have no power. You have no creativity. You have no freedom or independence. Not really. We gave that to you, and we can take it away. And now we know, because all the sociologists and the academic dome heads and the Anderson Coopers and the David Gergens of this world have covertly assured us that globalism, the interdependence of everybody on everybody else, is the only thing that the future holds for everybody. In order for that to happen, you have to give up your individuality. That's the great obstruction. You have to stop being you. You have to admit that you were never you. That was always just some kind of a delusion, you see. So when InfoWars says 2016 is 1776, they're not just blowing smoke. They are referring you back to a fundamental principle on which this country was based. If you look at the founding documents and read a little bit between the lines, just a little bit, the whole idea was to create a government that would be so severely limited that the individual would be liberated to follow, pursue his or her own vision of happiness, the future, and actually make it happen. Actually make it happen. That's called individual power. That's what that is. Individual power. And that's another one of those words that's like a silver bullet to the vampires. The term individual power, my God, we have to destroy that. We have to kill it off in favor of the collective. Let us all hover under the great dome of sameness. You are number 367A, I am number 367B in the great beehive of the future. That's where the globalists are going, folks. That is exactly where they're going. And real solutions derail that whole effort and put the individual back where he belongs, in charge, with his own intelligence, with his own rationality, with his own mind, with his own logic, with his own creativity, with his own power. That's what's happening. That's where we need to go. That's the movement, many of whom coalesced around Donald Trump. That movement is bigger than anybody. Doesn't matter who he or she is. And whoever represents at any given moment that movement better be aware that we are aware and we know whether or not things are on the side of liberation or destruction. That's the story. That's what the movement is all about. That's why we need a solution. Okay, John Rappaport here, sitting in for Alex in the fourth hour. This is our last segment. We're talking about solutions, real things, bots or real people. Why not? So let me title this brief segment as we wrap up here, Draining the Pharmaceutical Swamp. And I don't know whether Trump or Bannon or any of the inside core team has looked at this, but they better. They better. I've been writing about it for a long time. July 26, 2000, Journal of the American Medical Association, Dr. Barbara Starfield, who at the time was a revered public health expert at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. So everybody's mainstream credentials up and down the line were meticulous. Wrote a review called Is U.S. Health Really the Best in the World? Conclusion, the U.S. medical system kills every year 225,000 people. That's right. That would be, if you want to extrapolate it out to a decade, 2.25 million people killed every decade by the U.S. medical system. About half of those with FDA-approved pharmaceutical drugs. The rest, mistreatment and errors in hospitals. So this is a colossal death march that just keeps on going. You're not going to read about it in major media. They're not going to talk about it. They're all sold out. They're in partnership. They're part of the pharmaceutical cartel. But I'm pointing it out because it's murder. It's been going on forever. No president dares to touch it, or even talk about it, or even think about it. Ditto for Congress. Ditto for the FDA, who is basically responsible for it. Yeah. 225,000 people killed every year by the U.S. medical system. So when Trump says that he wants to appoint somebody to head the FDA who's going to speed along approval of pharmaceutical drugs, from a business point of view, I understand his thinking. From a correct point of view, no. No. You have to turn that around and realize what's actually been happening. The FDA, who is the only agency in the country tasked with approving drugs as safe and effective, are approving drugs as safe and effective that are killing millions of people in America and have been for a very long time. That's the reality. That's what needs solving. That's the swamp that needs to be drained. The FDA and the pharmaceutical companies who manufacture the drugs do the fake studies that claim that the drugs are safe when they're killing millions of people. You want to drain a swamp? You drain that one and you will see life in America suddenly take an upsurge. Because, I mean, aside from the people who are killed, aside from the people who are maimed, it's a horror show. All people know it. Thank you for being with me the last hour. Thanks, Alex. Always great to be here on InfoWars. Signing off. Stay